Chair, we're now live.
A warm welcome to those attending and also viewing and watching live on our council YouTube channel, Hillingdon, London. This is the meeting of the Hillingdon Planning Committee, and my name is Councillor Higgins. I'm the chairman of this committee. Details of business to be considered today are shown on the agenda, copies of which are accessible on YouTube underneath the live broadcast. Please note that members of the committee will be using tablets and laptops to view their agenda. This is something that the council is now getting into, is to be a digital council and to stop us help the trees from being destroyed. So, on that note, there's a fire alarm. If anything goes off, please follow officers out of the building. We are not expecting a drill. Mobile devices, for those in the room, can you please switch to your mobiles off or onto silent? That'd be helpful. Declaration of interest. Councillors, if you have any declarations of interest to make in relation to today's agenda, please ensure that you state whether it's pecuniary or non-pecuniary and given the reason of your interest. Members need not declare an interest in any item on the agenda where they have already listed it on the register of interest. Furthermore, do not need to declare an interest just because you're a ward councillor or because you are a governor. There's resident feedback forms in the room if you'd like to fill those in to say what we're doing wrong and what we should do better. Also the attendees. Now I could be clever and say, but now it's telling me that I have to let you introduce yourself. So I'll start for Councillor Cawthorne. Can you start from that end and work your way around?
Yep. Councillor Philip Cawthorne, substitute member this evening. Thank you.
Councillor Davies, substitute member today.
Councillor Keith Burrows.
Good evening, Alan Tilley, team leader, transport planning and development.
Mike Kemp.
Microphone.
Mike.
Okay. Mike Kemp, deputy team leader, Central and South Team Development Management.
Chris Brady, planning team leader, Central and South.
Chris, can you also mention who's behind you so we know that as well?
Yeah, we have got Michael Brigginshaw, North team deputy team leader, and Owen Concannon, North team leader.
Thank you.
Katie Crosby, area planning service manager for the North. Good evening, Ros Johnson, head of development management and building control.
Liz Penny, Democratic Services Officer.
Natalie Fairclough, legal officer.
Councillor Jagji Singh.
Councillor Ella Garlick.
Good evening, Councillor Sharon Mudd.
Thank you. Welcome, all of you. Welcome to the meeting. Obviously, I've got my officer team to my right, and democracy team to my legal team to the left, as I'm the chairman. So if any things come up, then we can go through that. When petitioners come, I'll give you a brief outline of that when you come to the table. We're going to go to the agenda. Apologies for absence, Liz.
Thank you, Chair. We have received apologies from Councillor Jamdal with Councillor Cawthorne substituting and from Councillor Bennett with Councillor Davies substituting.
Thank you very much, both of you. Declaration of interest matters coming before this meeting. Anybody? Nope. Okay. Matters that have been notified in advance of urgent. We haven't got any of that. So that's that done. And confirmed that all business is marked in part 1. So all meetings will be considered in public. There's no part 2 items at all. So we'll go off for the first. I think I've covered everything. Oh yes. Did we say the minutes? Have we agreed the minutes of the last meeting? So agreed? Okay. And I think that's about it now. So we go straight to the agenda, which is item 6, 22 Belmont Close, Uxbridge. And that is Chris.
Thank you, Chairman. Okay, item 6 relates to an application for full planning permission at 22 Belmont Close, Uxbridge. The application relates to the erection of a detached 4-bedroom house with associated parking, amenity space, bin and cycle stores. The application is partly retrospective as the dwelling has been partly constructed, and this is reflected in the site photos which are included in this presentation. I would like to draw members' attention to the addendum on this item. A minor amendment is proposed to paragraph 1.9 on page 17 of the committee report pack to make it clear that a single-storey element to the rear is not a new revision. Before taking members through the presentation, I'd like to draw members also to page 21 in the committee report pack, which sets out the planning history on this site. The site has been subject to 2 prior consents for almost identical development. Following the grant of consent, the local planning authority was made aware of a drafting error on the approved plans relating to the location of the neighbouring dwelling at number 24. This property was illustrated to be 0.7 metres further back within its plot. Due to this error on the approved plans, the applicant has been unable to build out the scheme in accordance with the approved plans. The applicant has revised the plans to include the correct plotting of number 24, and that is the scheme which is before members this evening. I'll now take you through the plans. Here is the location plan with the site shown in the red box. The site is located within the North Uxbridge area of special local character. However, it is not subject to any further development plan or environmental constraints. Here is a pre-existing site plan. Members will note that number 24 is illustrated in 2 outlines. The first is the black outline, which shows the location of the property taken from an ordnance survey map, and this is the incorrect plotting of the building. The correct plotting is denoted in purple. That might be slightly more difficult for you to see. And this has been used to assess the application. Here was the pre-existing landscaping plan. This is the proposed site layout plan. The plan includes the ground floor details and also the 45-degree line of sight taken from the centre line of the nearest neighbouring habitable room windows. As shown in the 45-degree line drawn from number 24 across the front elevation, this would not be breached. Whilst the 45-degree line of sight from the nearest rear-facing window at number 20 does show a breach, this breach is only at ground floor level. The potential impact was considered as part of the assessment of the 2 previous consents which were granted and was deemed acceptable by officers. In terms of overshadowing and loss of outlook, the proposal would not result in any additional harm above that which was identified and deemed to be acceptable when determining the previous 2 applications. These are the proposed plans. They're almost identical to the plans which were approved as part of the previous 2 consents on the site. The main changes are the relocation of a ground floor side-facing window and door opening, a minor alteration to the roof height, which sees a reduction in the roof height, to ensure that the height is relative to the rest of the properties which form the street scene, and the provision of level access to the rear-facing doors towards the garden. Here is the existing proposed street scene elevation. It demonstrates the overall roof height would be relative to the neighbouring property at number 20. It is important to note that whilst the street scene elevation is useful in assessing whether the height is comparable to neighbouring properties, as it is in 2D, it does not give an accurate representation of the heights if the building lines are staggered. One of the points raised within the neighbour objections is that the eaves height of the new dwelling appear on this plan as though they would be directly in line with the neighbouring properties. However, given that number 24 is sited approximately 3 metres behind the building line of the new dwelling, and the relationship with the eaves would therefore be different, this cannot be accurately represented on a 2D plan. During a site visit, it was established that the eaves height of many of the properties within the street differ, and this is evidenced in the site photos which will be shown later in this presentation. This is the ground floor plan. It also shows the 2 on-plot car parking spaces which will be provided. This is the proposed landscaping plan which illustrates the landscaping scheme which is to be constructed. Here is a site plan showing the development within its context. One of the other points represented in the neighbour objections was that the building heights shown on the plans were not accurate. As such, a survey of all of the building heights was undertaken by a suitably qualified surveyor. This plan indicates the heights of the buildings within close proximity to the site. Number 20, which is directly adjacent to the site, benefits from a roof height of approximately 8.96 metres in height, and the new dwelling would benefit from a ridge line of approximately 9.05 metres. Although marginally higher, the slight increase in height above the neighbouring property would not be noticeable. The difference in height between the new dwelling and number 24 is comparable to the difference in height between number 20 and number 18. Before moving on to the petitioner's slides, I want to address some of the concerns within the objections and petition lodged against the application. If members need reminding of what those are, they can be found on page 22 of the committee report pack. The first is in regards to the principle of development and the concern regarding overdevelopment. The development of a residential property on this garden land site has already been established twice through the two previous consents. Although this cannot be lawfully implemented due to the marginal error in the location of the neighbouring property, this has no bearing on the principle of a residential intensification on this site. As such, the principle remains acceptable. In addition to the assessment of the overshadowing concerns regarding the potential for overlooking from the rear dormer have been raised. Such overlooking is general and no different to the overlooking from rear-facing windows experienced by existing neighbours. A concern has also been raised regarding the finished floor levels being higher than the neighbouring property at number 24 and the provision of a new window and door opening which could provide views of the side-facing window at the same property. With regards to the finished floor levels, officers have visited the site and taken measurements to establish the ground levels and the potential finished floor levels in comparison with number 24. It is noted that there is a difference between the existing ground levels of the two properties, with number 22 sitting higher than number 24 but not significantly. It is also recognised that the finished floor levels would sit approximately 20 centimetres above the existing ground level on the application site, and this could give rise to potential overlooking or overshadowing of the neighbour's window in the side elevation at number 24. However, this window serves a bathroom and is obscurely glazed apart from the linear section at the top of the window. As this serves the bathroom, which is a non-habitable room, there is no policy justification for safeguarding the window from any form of direct overlooking or overshadowing. Furthermore, the opening, which is in direct view of the window, would be a door and a window serving a utility room, both of which would have infrequent use, unlike a habitable room. Based on these points, a reason for refusal relating to an overlooking or overshadowing of this window would not be justifiable and would not withstand an appeal. Notwithstanding these points, both the window and the door would be obscurely glazed. This is represented in the condition to be attached to the planning consent, and the applicant has proposed to construct a 2.2 metre high fence along this boundary to prevent any potential but limited overlooking. Members should note that the development proposed in this application is almost identical to the applications which were approved in 2023. Neither of these applications drew any public objection at all. Officers have considered the points raised within the objections and the petition and find there to be no reasonable or justifiable grounds for refusal. The changes to the proposal are minor and have no bearing on the previous approved schemes and on this scheme, which can be justified and would withstand an appeal. I'm just going to take you through some of the additional photos. So here is a bird's eye view plan. This is the street scene elevation. You'll see this photo was taken, I believe, on the 5th of the 12th, 24. Yeah, it's dated in the top right-hand corner. So this is the most recent site photo we've got, and it does show the building as progressed up to the point in December. Here's a photo from the building line of the neighbouring property at number 20. Photo of the rear garden. These were taken earlier than December. Here is a photo of the street scene character, which shows the different levels in roof height and also the differing eaves heights. So, although the finished property may have a differing eaves height in comparison to the property that's set further back in its plot, that is not uncommon within this street. And here is an image of the opening facing the side wall of number 24. So the window I referred to earlier in the side elevation of number 24, you see there. The existing height of the fence would be increased to 2.2 metres, therefore mostly covering that opening completely, therefore reducing any potential overlooking. Again, I'll just repeat the fact that this is that window there serves a bathroom, and in terms of overshadowing, there is no policy position to safeguard those windows from overshadowing. So just finally, in terms of its conformity with the development plan, it is as was previously granted consent. There is no significant departure from those two permissions, which would require a further assessment. That being said, the benefits which were established within those two reports and those decisions are brought forward within this application. They amount to the provision of new housing and a contribution towards family-sized housing, for which there is an established need across the borough. As well as the slight amendment within the addendum, there is also a verbal update just to strengthen two of the conditions which are to be attached to the planning consent if members are minded to go with officer's recommendation. It is proposed to include the ground floor side-facing windows in specific reference within condition 3, and that reference will reference the ground floor side-facing windows facing number 20. And it is also proposed to add reference to EVCP provision, vehicular access and parking provisions into condition 8, and insert the requirement for these to be implemented prior to occupation. The application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chris. That's a thorough presentation. Thank you very much. Miss Suzanne Hale, come on down. Miss Hale, what will happen is that you'll press the button, you'll have 5 minutes to talk. You'll have a green for 4 minutes, and when it turns amber, you've got 1 minute left. When it turns red, for everybody to be fair, I will stop you. Please don't think I'm being rude, but that's just the way it is. So whenever you're ready, press the button on the microphone and we can go.
Good evening, Chair and committee members. On behalf of the residents affected by this application, I thank you for the opportunity to present our case. When the property developer came to our house, he showed us the plans and continually said that the rear walls of the main house and the ground floor extension would not exceed the rear walls of our house or extension. Therefore, overlooking of our garden would be kept to a minimum, so we felt no need to object to the planning application. However, he did not keep his word and built past our walls. The developer then proceeded to tell us that our building was in the wrong position relative to the ordnance survey map, but has not provided any evidence to support this. We feel that it was always his plan to do this, and it has allowed him to add significant space to each room in the house, and therefore adding value to the build. We had confidence the Hillingdon Council would hold the developer to account, but it seems you will approve this build retrospectively, financially rewarding the developer for exceeding his planning permission and undermining residents' trust in the planning process. We brought this breach to the attention of the planning department when the footings were dug. However, we were repeatedly ignored and told no breach had occurred until we hired a solicitor. Our objections to this application are the position of all the rear walls and the floor height of the building. All the other issues stem from these two features. I've read the planning officer's report, and I would like to point out that it is not just the ground floor extension rear wall which exceeds the rear wall of number 21. See slide 1. All rear walls on the ground, first and second floor extend further than the original approved application. Contrary to the officer's report, this has a huge impact on our privacy and in itself is enough to refuse the planning permission. Our whole house has been shifted forward on the plans. This means that all 3 bedrooms that previously only overlooked a small part of our garden now overlook the whole garden. We request that you defer your decision on this application, and we invite the whole planning committee to visit the site and see for themselves what has been built and the impact it has on us. The floor heights of the ground floor are higher than the floor heights of surrounding properties. See slide 2. Again, this only became apparent after building works commenced and was not on the original approved plans. This has decimated the privacy of both neighbouring gardens. We can see head and shoulders of people standing on the patio doors above the 6-foot garden fence. The developer is now proposing a new 2.4 metres high fence to try and hide this mistake. We do not want a higher fence hemming us in. The floor levels need to be reduced. Our ground floor bathroom is directly overlooked by a side door and window. See slide 3. The window was not in the original plans. Again, the raised floor heights are causing the issue. Once the door is opened, the obscure glass becomes irrelevant. When the light is on in our bathroom, they will clearly see our silhouettes. Please ensure that the floor level is reduced to an acceptable level, or that the door is blocked up and the window is a non-opener. Plan 3309.03 shows that the patio and ground level outside the patio door will be lower than the floor height in the house. We request that a covenant is put in place for the lifetime of this property to ensure this does not change and to protect our privacy. We also request a covenant to be put on the first floor side window overlooking us. It should be obscure glass and a non-opener as in the report. We would like you to consider having the building raised to the ground and then rebuilt with lower floor levels and the rear walls level with our rear walls. This will solve all the problems. Once again, I invite the whole planning committee to visit the site to see the issues for yourself, and we request that you defer your decision on this application until after this has taken place. The information in the officer's report about the rear walls is wrong, and it would be unfair for you to make a decision on incorrect facts. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Howe. If you just sit there for a minute to see if any councillors would like to ask any questions. Councillor Cawthorne.
Thank you. Ms. Howe, thank you for your presentation. Sorry, that is now on. Sorry, I'll repeat that. Thank you for your presentation. A couple of questions for me. I'm looking at the summary of representations received. So there's a comment in issues raised that drawings are inaccurate and do not accurately reflect what's been built. So that's your point about the rear walls exceeding that which was previously consented. That's my first question. Is that right?
Yes, originally on the original plans, the walls would not be in the position where they have been built.
Okay, so I'll follow up on that when we get to the officer station. If I may, Chairman, through you, can you just repeat the point about the effect of the varied floor levels and the impact on the size of silhouettes? I didn't quite grasp that. Can you just explain that again briefly for us, please?
The damp course in the new property is 214 millimetres higher than our damp course, making all the floor levels on the ground floor higher. This then has knock-on effects for second floor and top floor. So if somebody is standing on that floor, so at the back doors or even in the bathroom, they are physically higher than the fence. This just takes away all our privacy completely. There's no need for the floor levels to be higher. We have no flooding in Belmont Close, so there is no reason, and that was never on the original plans.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Davis, do you want to ask anything? No?
I'm happy to withdraw, Chairman. Councillor Cawthorne asked my question.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Howe. If you'd like to turn the microphone on, take a seat, please.
Thank you.
Okay. We have the applicant and the agent. Is it Gary Rennie and Mr. Andrew or Peter Norman. I think, as you heard before, you have 5 minutes.
Yeah.
3 at 4 on green, 1 on amber, red. I will stop you whenever you press the microphone. You're great. Can you just introduce yourself as well for us?
Hello, I'm Peter Norman. I originally designed the house. The couple of points I wanted to bring up very briefly regarding the overshadowing. The back of the garden is south facing, and therefore you won't get any shadowing from our building through to their garden. It will be all the reverse way, so that it comes the other way. The ground floor side facing window is higher than their window, I accept that, but the floor level will be lower, this because it's a bigger window. There will not be any opening below 1700 on there, and it was agreed after discussion with the planning department that it would be advised to make the fence 2.2 metres high, so it stops any looking in. As far as the point that was raised about seeing silhouettes through the window, I've got a house with exactly the same situation, and we've got a blind in the bathroom, and if someone's in there with the light on, you can pull the blind down. You can't see anything in through that window, so that really is a non-thing. Now, as regarding the building being bigger than was originally planned, that definitely is not the case. The back wall is slightly further back than the house next door, but if you go to the original slide of the site plan, you'll see that we took it from the ordnance survey plan, which is what the council normally request, and that obviously we can't go on everyone's garden and measure everyone's houses before we start. We have to take the ordnance survey plan as correct, the same as yourselves you do. And I've been criticised in the past where I've tried to amend the size of an ordnance survey plan. We're told that we must stick to the ordnance survey plan and submit that, which is what we did. Now, it was later brought to our attention that their house was further forward. I did try and talk to the lady about the fact that the house was different from the ordnance survey plan, and in fact her house was further forward than technically it should be, because it's forward of the ordnance survey, but she just wasn't interested in hearing any of that. So that's why we've ended up with a plan that was out of place. When we had the scaffold up, we were able to measure from the scaffolding the distance of her house in relationship to ours, which is why we've got the two different colour of the adjoining houses, showing the one of the ordnance survey in black and the one in reality in a sort of light brown colour. So it was done without meaning to, and as far as us trying to push the back wall out to get the rooms bigger, that's been checked by the enforcement officer. The building is exactly the size of the original planning permissions, and as it is now. As far as the floor level is concerned inside, we did have a 75mm screed on top of the insulation planned. I'm willingly take that down to 20mm of chipboard on top of it, which will lower us down by 50mm, if that will make it feel better to anyone else. And as far as being further back at the back of it, the further you go back, the less of an angle, seeing less of their garden is possible. So therefore, if we move the building forward, then you would see more of the garden. So there's something quite wrong with what they've assessed on it. And the attic dormer room is obscured by the roof. If you see the rear elevation, you'll see that the rear two-storey roof actually projects beyond the dormer and therefore stops any overlooking. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Does any questions for the applicant? No? Thank you very much. Mr. Norman, could you like to take a seat, please? I do see a councillor hiding in the back there. Do you wish to speak, Councillor Bell? You know the routine, but you only have 3 minutes, yeah? Okay, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me briefly address the meeting. I fully support the petitioner and the points that have been made tonight. I think it needs to be remembered that it has always been accepted that this site was going to be developed one day, and all seemed well. What has transpired is a terrible development which has flaunted many of the original agreed plans. The new building is out of proportion with the plans and needs amending, better still demolishing and starting again. I visited the petitioner at home and seen it all for myself, and I fully urge the committee to defer this application for a site visit to see for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Any questions for Councillor Bell? No? Thank you. You'd like to take a seat? Thank you very much. Committee, what I'm going to do is get officers, obviously there's been lots said, and let them explain before I open it to the floor. Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. Chris, would you like to go first? I'm going to explain a little bit about the planning enforcement side of things, but if you want to take the other points.
Thank you, Ross. Appreciate it. And I think first, I just want to say that I do empathise with residents and the petitioner. It's been quite difficult from speaking to residents to get to grips with the plans that have been submitted, given the number of iterations that we've received, not only within the 2 previous applications, but also this application. So I do empathise with some of the points that have been raised throughout the application process. I think the first point I want to address is the concern regarding, or the comment regarding the fact that the building extends beyond the rear elevation of the neighbouring property and what's in the committee report. So if members want to take a look at the committee report, I'm sure they familiarise themselves already with it, but paragraph 7.41 of the case officer's committee report does actually say that the position of the house next door, now that it's been replotted, would result in a minor protrusion at ground floor level beyond this rear elevation of 0.7 metres, and it's probably quite difficult to see on the plan, but that is reflected on this plan. So in this corner here, there is actually a measurement, and that measurement says 0.7 metres. So it's reflected in the case officer's report that it's not the development that has moved in terms of its location within the plot, but the replotting of the neighbouring property in its correct position results in a 0.7 metre protrusion beyond the rear elevation. So we have noted that in the report it is identified. That being said, we do need to consider whether the extension beyond the rear elevation is harmful. So a 0.7 metre extension beyond the rear elevation, if we were looking at a single storey rear extension, would be well and acceptable. The local plan allows for an extension beyond the rear elevation of 3.6 metres, and we're dealing with something that's 0.7 metres in depth beyond the rear elevation of that property. So I'd like members just to consider that. In terms of the ground levels, those are also noted within the report. I personally visited site. I agree that there is a land level change and there is a change in levels within the property. It is not uncommon for a new development and its finished floor level to be raised up to 0.3 metres above the existing ground level. Now, when I was on site, I did note that the rear garden ground level was in fact at a higher level than the land immediately around the building. And my measurement of that was about 0.22 metres, so 20 centimetres in difference There was an additional 20 centimetres then added onto that up to where the opening was, so that was a change in levels of approximately 40 centimetres. So if we consider that it's not abnormal for new dwellings to be raised 0.3 metres high above the existing ground level, this would only be 10 centimetres above that. Now, if you take into consideration the change in levels between the rear garden and what's been dug out around the property, you get an increase in finished floor levels of around 20 centimetres. Now, those are only my measurements that I took. You'll see, I don't know if I've got it on this image, no. Apologies, it would have been helpful to have an image of that, of where I've taken the measurements from. But what you might actually be able to see, you can't even see that, the picture's quite dark. On the fence which is shown in front of you, there was actually a marking of where the existing ground level had been dug out. I also measured that. That did amount to 20 centimetres as well. Therefore, I do not believe the increase in finished floor levels would amount to a significant departure from any policy or significant harm upon neighbouring properties in terms of flooding. I'll then just move on to the window in the side elevation. The window in the side elevation has moved since the original planning application was submitted, and there's some comments around that which are not material. So it involves the inclusion of I believe an air source heat pump within the building, and that's had to have a slight adjustment to where the utility room was going. That isn't material to the determination of the application. What is material is the size of the opening and what it looks at. Now, I've already explained that the side-facing window serves a bathroom. When you're looking in a development plan to assess neighbour amenity, you would be looking for a 21-metre distance between habitable room windows. Neither of these rooms are habitable. So you've got a utility room, which is proposed on this site, looking at a bathroom on the other side, of which most of that window is obscurely glazed. I do note that in this photo, the top part of the window is clear glazed. So in terms of overlooking and overshadowing, there is no policy position to protect those windows which are non-habitable from overlooking or overshadowing. The 2.2 metre high fence has been put in order to mitigate the potential of overlooking into that window. It is noted that if you did stand in the opening, if the finished floor level is where it is shown now, or to be now, then you may experience some level of overlooking, but it's very difficult to determine that unless you're actually, the finished floor level is actually in. So even without the 2.2 metre high fence, if the finished floor level was constructed in that position, there is no policy basis here for a reason for refusal that officers could create. I just want to pick up as well on the point that's been raised regarding, or the request from the petitioner for a member's site visit. So based on the officer's assessment and what you've read in the report, officers do not see a departure from the original consent. We do know that the plotting of the building next door has resulted in this application having to come forward. The application which is before us at the moment is due to be determined and expire this week. In the event that a member's site visit would need to take place, we do risk extending beyond that point, and we would need to find a departure from policy in order to consider whether there is a reason for refusal, which would take us to a site visit, and then whether or not we are risking the potential for a non-determination appeal. Thank you, Chairman.
Rose, do you want to pick up going?
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. Thanks, Chris. I just thought it might be helpful just to give some further background related to the enforcement investigation, because that was mentioned by the petitioner. So following receipt of a complaint, the enforcement team investigated. Now, it's a bit of an unusual one in that we concluded that the dwelling itself had been built in accordance with the plans, but the issue was, as we've heard, the neighbouring property was not plotted correctly. So in effect, you can't build out the development in accordance with the approved plans. So after careful consideration of representations from the complainant, we did take the view that there was a breach of planning control. Now, in terms of dealing with that, as you'll know, we have to take a proportionate approach. There's different tools that we have in terms of enforcement, but the first line of approach generally would be in terms of negotiation. And as you know, planning legislation does make provision for retrospective applications. So it is a legitimate response that the applicant has submitted a retrospective application to see whether the proposal as built is acceptable. So first of all, just wanted to be clear that that is quite a standard approach in terms of dealing with an enforcement matter. And what we now need to do is assess the application that's before us. It is important as well just to consider in terms of the fallback positions. So normally when we've got a previous consent, we call that a fallback position. Now this is a slightly different scenario because that previous consent can't actually be built out in accordance with the plans. But that said, it is still an important material consideration. We do need to be consistent in terms of our decision making. So we've previously concluded that a house on this plot is acceptable, a house of similar design and with similar impacts in terms of amenity and highway. So what we need to focus on today is the differences, in essence, between what we considered acceptable before as a planning authority and what we're looking at now. And hopefully Chris has very helpfully gone through those key elements. But if you've got any particular questions, we're happy to take those. Thank you.
Thank you, Ros. Okay, I'll open it to the floor. So who wants to ask the first question? Councillor Davis and Councillor Cawthorne.
This is very uncomfortable to me. I know I'm not a regular on this planning committee, but it is very uncomfortable because it seems very confusing. The plans, I can see at one stage the property is back further, and I don't think as a committee we should have been put in this position. So I'd be very mindful to raise that through you, Chairman, that especially as we are at the moment, we're making decisions on residents' lives and also people's livelihoods here, and we shouldn't be put in this position. But I am minded just to ask a few questions. So can I just get some more clarity on the floor height and the difference of how would that normally stand in a normal practice? Because if I look at the pictures supplied by the residents, it does look a lot higher. So I just need a bit more clarity on that, please.
Yeah, Christian.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor. We have set out the measurements which were taken on site within the committee report. I've referred to them in the presentation and in responding to the lead petitioner's comments. One thing I did observe on site was that there is an existing and natural ground level change between number 24 and the application site. Now, I've only measured the ground level from within the application site itself because that's the site that we visited. And my measurements did indicate that the land around the actual dwelling, which is what you see within the lead petitioner's presentation, had actually been dug out in comparison to the land which is natural and within the garden. So there was a lower ground level change in comparison to the higher ground level change, which is to the rear. So that indicates that the land around it has been dug out in order to form the building. Now, I've explained that it's natural for any new development to have an increased floor level of up to 30 centimetres. I don't believe that this property extends beyond that. And although there is an agreement that there is a land level change, we do not consider that to have an impact upon flooding of any neighbouring properties. And that's set out in the report. Ros, did you want to? Yep.
Yeah, just to come in on that, just wanted to be clear, there's not sort of a set floor level that we would expect necessarily in a development. So we would look at it on a case-by-case basis. And, you know, as Chris has said, it's perfectly common for a finished floor level to be, you know, above the ground level for, you know, protection for flooding, that sort of thing. So my own view is that this doesn't look after keeping in terms of where the finished floor level is proposed to be positioned, you know, having regard to the street scene. So the key issue that we need to consider is the relationship with the neighbouring property. Now, Chris has gone through this at length, so I don't want to repeat everything, but our position as officers is that we don't think there's a policy justification or a sustainable grounds for refusal. We consider that the relationship between the proposed dwelling or the half-built dwelling and the neighbouring properties on either side is acceptable in planning terms, and we don't feel that we could justify a refusal of planning permission at appeal.
One final question,
Cool.
if I may,
Go
Chairman.
ahead.
Are we able to condition something along the lines of soakways around the edge to protect the residents' garden? Is that something that we could put in? Because even though it is a slight variant, there is always going to be...
I mean, what we're talking about is the actual new build problem, not...
I can't add nothing on.
Yeah.
I know I'm trying my luck there, Chairman.
Okay, that's fine. No, I'm just going to say that...
So I'm more concerned about the
flooding of the new property.
Yes, that is my concern. The flooding of the new property. If it's not, I completely understand that. I'm a bit rusty, but I will always ask these questions.
Sorry, just to clarify, so do you mean as a means to reducing the finished floor level? Yeah, I mean, it's not something that I would recommend. I think essentially we've got an application before us, so we need to make a decision as to whether it is acceptable or not in planning terms. It would be unreasonable, I think, I don't feel you could impose a condition such as that, so we'd be looking at a refusal if you were going down that route, and I just don't think that's justified.
Sorry, also just to draw your attention to the fact that we have a condition, compliance condition, which is in place or proposed to be added to the grant of consent, which secures flood resilience and SUDS matters. Now, I wouldn't be able to go through the specifics of what's in that document, but the flooding that would occur within the site or any sustainable urban drainage that's required has already been agreed. And that's the position from officers.
Also, I'll pick up on the fact that a lot of these new conditions on new builds are determined by building control, which is not part of this committee, so this is just the plans.
I was just going to ask, can we delegate powers to officers to make sure that's in there or something similar?
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
Councillor Cawthorne.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I mean, my feeling looking at this as a substitute member is that were I a regular committee member, I'd be sympathetic to a site visit, notwithstanding the risk of an appeal for non-determination, but I think if others want to go down that road, there's a matter for them. I don't think it's right for me to ask for it. It is frustrating because I think were we, looking at the original application, I think we would really have wanted to throw the book at this, quite honestly, but we really are constrained, and it's important that the petitioner understands that our abilities.
Can I just interrupt you? Excuse me. You've got to remember this application was approved before, by committee.
Yes.
Was it by committee? There was delegated powers because it was within the threshold.
Because it wasn't called in. Okay, fine.
Okay. But because that we found that there's an issue with the audience measurements, that's why it's come before committee. Yeah.
Understood,
okay.
But.
Just for clarity, I'm not...
No, understood. But I think the point I'm trying to make is that we're beyond the point where we can make too much of this because of previous decision-making under delegations. The London plan is frequently cited. That's a red flag to the ball to a lot of us, and including yourself, Chairman, I'm sure. But that's where we are. So, anyway, having said all that, I've got a couple of questions. I mean, the applicant talks about potentially reducing the height of the screed as something that might perhaps to an extent alleviate some of the concerns. Whether it does or not, I don't know. I'm interested in the officer comments on whether that's something that could be taken forward possibly. And also, when it comes to the obscure glazed windows that we're talking about, I just want to be clear what I've understood about that. What I think I heard was that actually we can't condition for them to be non-opening. Can I just clarify that? The other question is I have is, must they be obscure glazed or can an obscure film be used? Because I have come across that, and I know that causes concern when it happens. I hope that was heard, because, Chairman, you're in conversation at the moment.
I heard that.
Me to repeat that?
I'm just verifying that these windows that will be put in place will be obscure glazed. It's a door, and it will be a door and a window which will have obscure glazing, correct? So the fence is an extra precaution if the door is open to stop overlooking. When the door is closed, no one will be able to see out of it because it's obscure glazed.
Right, okay. The second part of that question, which you possibly, Mr. Chairman, which I'll reiterate, is these must be obscure glazed windows. A film cannot be used, because I see that happening, and I hear officers coming back to me elsewhere saying that's compliant. So I just want some clarity on that. I've mentioned the screed bit, so a comment on that would be helpful as well, please. I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cawthorne. Chris, do you want to take those?
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor, for the questions. Before I answer the questions regarding the windows and the reduction in height, I understand the confusion around where the property has been plotted, but we do need to be mindful that the issue around the plotting is only 0.7 metres. So if we were considering that as the need for a potential site visit, we do need to be mindful that it's a marginal distance beyond the rear elevation. So I just wanted to make that point. In terms of the condition relating to the type of glazing that would be implemented, it would be to what the national standard is, and that's on the Pilkington scale. So we'll be certainly making sure that that's robust enough so that appropriate glazing is used. It is a door, so as the chairman referred to, it will be opened at some point in time, but that will be a lot less frequent as in comparison to a habitable room. And then just in terms of the request for the finished floor level or the screeding to be reduced, officers are content with the proposal which has been put before members. I don't know whether, Ros, you'd have anything to refer to on that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's necessary from my perspective, but it has been put forward by the applicant or agent. So essentially, that condition is on the table if members felt that it was appropriate. So I think what we'd have to do is we'd have to word a condition in such a way that the details of the finished floor level are submitted for approval. I think that would probably be the best way to deal with it, if you were minded to do that. But as I said, I don't feel it's necessary.
Okay, Councillor Cawthorne, do you want to come back and read that?
I'd be interested in other members' views on that. It's been put forward as something that might help. It may or may not interest in what other people think.
I don't think it's going to hurt, so I'd put it forward anyway. So if we can do that, it's been offered. It's on YouTube. It's been said, so it's not we're making it up. Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Chairman. It seems, we are sympathetic. I am definitely with the residents here, but it just seems unfortunate that we're in this position because of inaccuracies in measurement and data, and these things can happen. I am a little bit concerned about the timing of the item being brought onto the agenda when we say that it's only a week sort of left until it lapses.
I appreciate that. That's not really our concern as members.
But it puts the planning team, because even if we do, I'm not saying we were going to recommend a site visit, but let's say we did, it puts us in a position where this planning could then lapse. In regards to a visit, I appreciate the officers already has visited and made those measurements. So it does sort of tie our hands as members of the committee in terms of what we can and what we can't do. It seems unfortunate. I would echo the comments that you've just made yourself in terms of if we can alleviate any sort of if we can put any conditions in that will help alleviate some of the concerns the petitioners have made, we'd be more than welcome to support that. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. Any other, Councillor Davis?
Chairman, can we get some legal advice on this one as well? If legal have any comments on...
You saw me speaking, yeah. Fine, yeah. Yes, that's fine. Natalie, do you want to come with?
Thank you, Chairman, thank you. So, with regards to a potential site visit, if members are minded to conduct or to go out, then you have to be absolutely certain that it's absolutely necessary and adequate due to insufficient or lack of details provided tonight. Other than that, there would be no real reason to justify a site visit as already put forward by the planning officer this evening, bearing in mind the minutiae difference we're talking about here. So only if there is inadequate or insufficient detail for you to make a decision, then would a site visit be warranted here. Thank you.
So just for some clarity on that, it's through you, Chairman. So if we were to defer for a site visit today, the risk is it could go to an appeal or none, and we could lose anything that we have in place already.
That's one of the reasons, but the other reason is that we have to have reason. You know, it's just it can't be because we just fancy going. It's got to have you've got to have some reason, and someone in the committee has to put that forward, and it has to be seconded, and then we have to vote on it.
Of course, I understand.
So that's where it is. But you're absolutely right that, as I said to Councillor Mann, we are committee members. We can do what we want to a certain extent. You can have that, and we can take the consequences. But our legal case, if we were to fight anything, or if the applicant was then to come to us, there could be a legal challenge to the council. So we have to be mindful of that.
Yeah. I completely respect that, Chairman. I really do, and I am so sorry to the applicant, but I think our hands are tied here, and I would have to move with officers' recommendations. I don't see anything else that we can do at this stage. I just wish I'd seen this on the first application.
Thank you. So I have it moved with the condition to the applicant reduce the flooring. Can I have a seconder, please? Someone, Councillor Burrows, you can second that. Can I show of hands all in favour of the officer's recommendation with that additional condition? Yeah. That's unanimous. I do apologise. I know it doesn't sound fair, but we have to abide by the rules, I'm afraid. Okay. So if you wish to leave the committee, you're more than welcome. You can do it quietly. That'd be helpful. We go to item 7, which is Harefield Road. Mike, you're doing this. Welcome to the committee. It's your first appearance. Don't get too nervous, I hope.
Thank you, Chair. So this application is at number 72 Harefield Road in Uxbridge. So the proposals relate to the demolition of the existing building on the site and the erection of a new building to provide 9 flats, associated parking and amenity space. So this is the site location plan outlined in red. So the site consists of number 72 Harefield Road. It's a detached property located to the north of Uxbridge Town Centre. So the property benefits from a large rear garden which extends up to the boundary of number 2 Cambridge Road. So both properties to the north and south of the site are also blocks of flats. So this is a site constraints plan. So the site lies outside of the adjacent special area of local character and is not included within a conservation area. This is a street view image of the site looking from Harefield Road towards the dwelling in the centre of the image. The building to the left of the site is number 76. That's a property that's been subdivided into flats, and there's another block of flats to the right of the site. And this is an image looking from the north of the site down Harefield Road. This image is helpful really in showing the difference in levels between the adjoining site and the site of the proposed house. Just see the picture, the top picture of the roof in the centre of this image. And this is a satellite image of the site outlined in red. So you see to the south of the site is the existing block of flats, garages to the rear, and the number 76 Harefield Road to the north of the site, and that building features a rear area of parking to the east of the building. These are the existing elevations of the house located on the site, so a 2-storey detached house. And this is the proposed site plan. So as noted, the existing building would be demolished and replaced by a new 4-storey building containing 9 apartments. You might be able to make out on the site plan the footprint of the existing building, which is dashed in red on the image. A new access and crossover would be formed off Harefield Road with 12 spaces provided on site, consisting of 1 disabled space to the front of the site and 11 spaces to the rear, accessed via a new driveway to the north of the building. The report refers heavily to the planning history on the site. This relates to 4 applications that were refused by officers and considered at appeal. Now, 3 of those appeals were dismissed. However, the most recent appeal for 2 houses on the site was allowed. So the most recent appeal, in fact, all the appeal decisions must be afforded weight, but particularly substantial weight must be given to the recently allowed appeal. Now, figure 4 on the officer's report shows the site layout for the appeal scheme. What can be noted on here is that the footprint of the proposed scheme is identical to that of the scheme that was permitted at appeal. See the key difference here being that the number of units on the site has increased from 2 to 9 units, whilst there'd also be the access to the north of the building and parking to the rear. So in the context of the increased number of units, attention should be drawn to paragraph 129 of the MPPF, policies GG2, D3 and H1 of the London Plan, policy DMHB 17 of the local plan, all of which require that efficient use is made of sites to achieve an optimum density of development. With regards to paragraphs 7.2 and 7.23 of the report, the provision of the 2 houses on the site that was permitted at appeal does represent a very low density of developments when considered in that context, and the current proposals would deliver a more efficient use of land on the site. The approved development of 2 dwellings, as noted, did not include the provision of the side access to the north. However, appeal into 2023, one of the 2023 appeals, that did include an access to the north, and the inspector found there to be no significant harm to the amenity of the adjoining residents in terms of noise and general disturbance, and that was for the same quantum of development as being considered under this application. So the side access also mirrors a similar arrangement at number 76 Harefield Road to the north of the site, which also features a side access and rear parking. Suitability and safety of the site access onto Harefield Road is considered in depth within the report and has been considered under each of the previous appeals, including up to the quantum of 9 units, and was not found to be harmful in highway safety terms, and this is a view that's supported by the Council's highways officers. The provision of 12 parking spaces is compliant with the maximum parking standards set out in the London Plan. The site has a PTAL rating of 1A, which allows for a maximum of 1.5 spaces to be provided per unit. And furthermore, a unilateral undertaking would be secured to remove residents' access to parking permits. The site layout includes the provision of shared communal space to the rear of the flats, which is considered acceptable, considering the majority of the flats would benefit from balconies or ground level terraces. The proposals safeguard the substantial mature trees on the site, which would assist in retaining the verdant leafy character of the site, which has been highlighted in the previous appeals as being of significant importance. Working through the proposed floor plans, the lower ground floor consists of 2 flats. This includes a 3-bedroom unit and a 2-bedroom unit. Each of these flats would be provided with external terrace areas. The reprovision of the 3-bed dwelling would be classed as a family size unit, which would ensure that there would be no loss of family-sized accommodation on the site, accounting for the loss of the existing house. And this is the proposed ground floor plan. So this is an arrangement of 2 1-bed units and 1 2-bed unit. And the first floor plan, which is an arrangement of 2 2-bed units, and the second floor plan, which is a arrangement of 1 bed and 1 2-bed and a single 1-bed unit. And this is the roof plan. So these are the proposed elevations. So as noted, the building is of the same design and scale as the scheme that was approved at appeal in 2024. The height and scale of the building would sit level with the roof ridge of the adjoining flats to the south, and would sit below number 76 Harefield Road to the north of the site. Sorry, number 74 Harefield Road. With regards to the general appearance of the building, there's variance within the appearance of the surrounding built form. This was highlighted in their 2024 appeal decision, as a reason for considering that the design of the proposed building was appropriate. With regard to overlooking of the neighbouring properties, conditions are attached requiring the fitting of obscure glazing and privacy screening to the windows and balconies respectively, where there's overlooking possible of windows in the adjacent properties, particularly with regard to the flats at number 74. So for the reasons set out in the report, the application is recommended for approval. Just a few notes as a verbal update. There's correction to the report in paragraph 7.31, which refers to the side elevation of the building facing numbers 56 to 60. The report states that except for a second floor window which serves a kitchen dining room, all of the windows would serve bathrooms. That should be corrected to say all of the windows above ground floor level would serve bathrooms. A couple of corrections to some of the conditions. So condition 6, which also relates to obscure glazing. So having regard to the submitted plans, it's suggested that obscure glazing is also fixed to the side facing windows at ground floor level. So the submitted plans, so the plans on the screen, do refer to obscure glazed windows, and they're marked obscured on the elevation plans. So it's suggested that the condition is reworded to require that all windows shown as obscured on the elevation plan shall be fitted with obscure glazing. And finally, with regard to condition 5, should be a correction here to omit reference to 5% of the parking spaces being served with EV charging points. So the 5% requirement is not correct. It's 20% active provision with 80% passive. So there is a separate condition for EV charging points. That's condition 9. So it's proposed that the reference to EV points from condition 5 should be deleted, as this is already covered sufficiently under condition 9. So that's all. Thank you.
Well done, Mike. Thank you. We have a written representation. Can you put the timer on so we show that we're fair? Yep.
Thank you, Chair. A written representation from the petitioner, Mr. Dr. Daniel Liu, in respect of this. I'm writing to put forth my strong objections to the above planning application. I'm disappointed that this application has been recommended for approval despite repeated rejections by the Council of 3 similar applications and their subsequent appeals by this same applicant. My major objections relate to reasons for which the previous planning applications were rejected and are as follows. The current application once again prioritises 1 and 2 bedroom dwellings, 8 of the 9 proposed. This does not align with the Council's ethos of providing more family-sized accommodations that are in keeping with the character and appearance of the area. Furthermore, it calls into question the legitimacy of the previous approved application, as this applicant clearly has no intention of creating true family homes. This reapplication for a near identical proposal to the previously rejected applications from 2021 and 2022, despite an approval for 2 semi-detached properties, surely now represents evidence of the applicant's intentions. The size of the property's roof is still far too large in relation to the surrounding area and neighbourhood, thereby not in keeping with the area's character and appearance. There will be a significant effect on the neighbouring properties, particularly those either side of the proposed property, by reducing their surrounding space, increasing noise and air pollution. There will be a significant increase in traffic, with the number of cars hypothetically increasing from 2 households if the approved application, APP R5510W233335976, goes ahead, to 9 households should the current reapplication 2576 App 2024-2484 go ahead. Harefield Road is one of the arterial roads to and from Uxbridge, providing a relief road to Park Road. The turning circles of the cars from these 9 dwellings will obviously impact the noise and air pollution of the area, as well as causing a build-up of traffic and potentially even increased likelihood of road traffic accidents in an already busy and at times dangerous stretch of road. Recently, 2 vehicles collided, forcing one onto its side. This application increases the risk to existing residents without any mitigation factors being considered or applied. Residents from Belmont Close across cross Harefield Road at this point with children as they go to Hermitage School via Fairlight Drive and Fairfield Road. No consideration has been given to the dangerous junction from Fairfield Road to Harefield Road, where cows will be unsighted to vehicles leaving this property. Further objections include the amount of green space is likely to be reduced by returning to the proposed 9 dwellings, as the previously planned garden space will now be converted to a car park. This again is in opposition to the previously described verdant nature and leafy character of the area, as described in the appeal approval from application APP R5510W23-333-5976. Furthermore, research has shown the minimum green space per person is 9 metres squared, with the ideal being 50 metres squared. This revised application falls short of supplying this necessary space. The design and access statement states under biodiversity, the proposal includes the retention of existing trees where possible, hence there is a net reduction. This is to be expected considering the increased area of the proposed building. The trees previously to the front of the house have been cut down, with low shrub trees to be planted at the front of the property. The site plan does not have the existing yew tree. The site plan shows a substantial reliance on trees from adjoining properties to provide cover with low planting within the site boundary. There will be an inadequate number of car parking spaces for the number of dwellings, 12 as opposed to 14, which will again lead to more congestion in the area and may cause current residents to find parking even more challenging. Any balconies that might be introduced in a multi-housing building are likely to overlook the surrounding properties and reduce privacy, even with a proposed increase in height of the balcony. I hope the objections I have raised will be seriously considered by the Planning Committee, and I trust they will not capitulate to this applicant's war of attrition tactics. I urge you to consider also the fact that this applicant has now submitted numerous rejected applications and appeals from as early as 2021, and whether continued entertainment of such applications or appeals is worthy of the Council's valuable time and resources. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have the applicant, Mr. Barrett? Would you like to come to the table, sir? I'm sure you heard before you got 5 minutes, 4 green, 1 amber. I think you've been here before a couple of times. Whenever you're ready, press the microphone on.
Thank you, Chair. As you are aware, this site has had several previous applications considered by this committee that have proved to be unsuccessful. However, the application today is very different from the first iteration that was considered. The main changes are as follows. The scale of the building has been substantially reduced, meaning the height is now much lower than its neighbour to the left and equal to the neighbour on the right. The width has also been reduced to match the width of the buildings to the left. Like our building, these two properties to the left sit on identical width plots. The gaps left between the buildings are now a minimum of 5 metres. The building to the right is much wider and is screened by a 65-metre row of protected trees. The rear projection has also been reduced in depth significantly, allowing the planning officers dealing with the previous application to be satisfied with that element of the design. These reductions in size, combined with the design changes, have resulted in the previous application being approved by the inspectorate. The building you are considering today is exactly the same size as the approved scheme, and there is very little difference in their exterior design. To all intents and purposes, it is an internal layout change that is being proposed here. Obviously, unlike the approved scheme, this application proposes a car parking area to the rear, which replicates the parking arrangements of the 2 neighbouring blocks of flats. Although this has caused concern to the petitioner whose property runs along the rear boundary of the site, this has never been seen as a problem to the planning officers or the inspectors dealing with the previous applications. I believe this is due to the fact that the parking area will only abut their property at the very end of their long garden, where they have a large shed located. 12 car spaces will be provided for the 9 flats, a figure that is supported by the Highways Officer. As the 2021 census showed that less than 50% of flat owners have access to a car or a van, the amount of car spaces proposed would appear to be suitable. We have agreed to enter a universal undertaking with the council, restricting future occupants from applying for parking permits on the surrounding streets, thereby preventing cars from spilling out of the development. The two previous planning applications for 9 flats on this site are comparable to this application in terms of highways impact. On both those occasions, the appeals inspector concluded that a refusal on highways amenity grounds would not be justified. The council's highways officer has never raised any objection on highways safety grounds on any of the previous applications. In fact, the highways officer stated that this development would only add 2 to 3 extra vehicle movements during peak hours, which he considered marginal in generation terms, and therefore can be absorbed within the local road network without notable detriment to the traffic congestion and road safety. The previous applications have been refused by this committee and dismissed at appeal because the scale of the building was considered overdevelopment of the site and the impact on the street scene. But at no point has any official involved refused an application due to the removal of the existing building and the replacement with flats. We have taken on board the criticisms of all involved and acted on them constructively, gaining support for the building from the inspectorate. We firmly believe that creating 7 much-needed extra dwellings will benefit the area, and we are pleased this improved scheme now has the full support of the planning department. Regarding the petitioner's concerns over outside amenity space, we have submitted an alternative site layout plan and revised B&G report to the planning department that exceeds the minimum requirements. However, we have been advised by the officer that the scheme being considered here is already satisfactory and is recommended for approval. I believe the officer can provide further details should you require them. Thank you.
Thank you. We'd have to trust you there. The machine went off on it, so thank you very much for that. Does any councillors have any questions? Councillor Davis.
There we go. I just have one brief question. I may be overstepping, Chairman. I do apologise if I am. Is there a reason why you didn't put any 3-bedroom properties into it? 3-bedroom flats, or extend the number that you've got? No. Is there a reason why you can't extend the number that you've got already? I was more concerned that is there a way to increase that to 3, maybe 4 to help us?
Although it is a requirement to have a replacement family dwelling, they're not actually very desirable as apartments. 1 and 2 bedroom apartments are much more desirable than a 3-bedroom flat.
Yeah.
That's
perfect.
That's basically the reason.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to get it in my head. Thank you.
I have one question for you. On the rear area where the amenity area is,
where the
amenity area is, on the plans it's very hard to see. Is there some sort of barrier so the cars can't drive onto the green? Is there a sort of... can you put that up, Chris, please? Sorry, Mike. I know who's got the control. You see at the rear there, you have the pathway, and the cars will drive from the outside the road off Harefield Road, come through to the back of the property. There's a bit of green on the left, and there's a more green behind. I'm led to believe those amenity areas, yeah? Yeah,
I mean, we would be obviously submitting a full landscaping plan.
Okay.
It could have bollards along it without any problem.
So can officers make a note of that? Yep. Okay, thank you very much, that's all. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Bells, do you want to speak on this one, or you're more than welcome as the ward councillor? I'm sure you stayed for that. Oh, you got a speech ready, so that's good. You got your 3 minutes. We're going to make sure this works this time. Make sure the lights work this time for you.
Thank you, Chair, once again. This 72 Harefield Road is it's like a never-ending story about what's the arguments I understand from the applicant, but I think he's just mixing. He's come back with something that he hasn't got away with. Why isn't he developing what he got permission for? there's also the issue of the road. Harefield Road, those that know Harefield Road, is a quick road, and I don't know what the accident rate is on there, but that particular stretch where 72 is a speedy part of the road, and more cars pulling out from there is going to cause more problems. I think the residents put across a very good argument against. We want family housing in Uxbridge. We're fed up with more flats. We want family developments in Uxbridge. And also, as I said, why couldn't the applicant come back with, if he got permission from the inspector, why has he come back with something that he got turned down for previously? I'll leave it there, Chair.
Thank you. We can have that debate afterwards. The issue is what the market demands. The developer will, we're not communists. He can make money if he wants to. So, as long as it's adhering to, we've got to remember that we've also lost this on appeal. So this has come back. So he's kept the same footprint, what we've asked for, and we just need to go further than that. But thank you. You'd like to take a seat? Who's going to take me away? Councillor Davis?
I've missed planning. Question for Dr. Tilley. It may be in the report, but it's quite a big report this evening. What's the PTAL rating for the property?
Thank you, Chairman. The site is in a location with a PTAL ranking of 1.0, which is poor. Thank you.
Okay, brilliant. And also, can we just go off of Councillor Bell's question there as well? Do we have any accident data within the area or any risk or anything like that?
Not a planning consideration.
Okay. Let me reform that. Dr. Tilley, do we believe that the number of parking spaces will cause due risk to the traffic within the area?
Well done.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to highlight that Harefield Road has a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, street lighting and footways, and we've been careful to protect sight lines for vehicles pulling out onto the highway, and we would expect in the AM peak around 2 to 3 cars leaving, which across the full day is insignificant and could be absorbed by the existing traffic flows. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Dr. Tilley.
Councillor Corbin.
Yeah, a couple of things from me. I mean, once again, our hands are tied, and of course, in fairness, in this instance, we have refused previous applications here, and we've been overturned as an appeal. Understood, and clearly that limits our scope for decision making this evening. But my questions really are around the point 7.19, talking about making the most efficient use of the site, and talking about the need for making sure that we're reflecting housing need in decisions we're making. As I understand it, we've got one 3-bed property, the rest are flats, so essentially we're losing one family-sized property, getting another, albeit it's gone from 4 to 3. But surprised that stacks up in planning terms, but I can see what the appeal said. I just wonder what difference the additional 2 flats make, whether that makes any difference, because in my view, you get to a point where you start to have grounds for an argument. But I'll be interested to hear what officers got to say about that. My second question is around the tree retention. So 7.66, there is a tree, T28. I just want to be clear that it is to be retained, because there's a bit of a discrepancy, I think, between what petitioners are saying and what officers are saying. Can we just be clear that tree is being retained? And really, I'm just going to comment on the highway situation. I use Harefield Road an awful lot, and it really is hairy at times, quite honestly. And I know that highways will typically say, well, it won't make a great deal of difference, so therefore it's not a sustainable objection. I know the inspector has said that, and I know we've got nowhere to go, but it does strike me that planning policy, quite honestly, is ludicrous. But there we are. Personal view. Thank you. Rant over.
Thank you for your personal view. Can officers pick up those questions for me?
I mean, the 3-bed unit would be classed as a family-sized dwelling in accordance with the definitions set out in the London plan. I mean, that is replacing the unit that would be lost, and the other dwellings that are provided in addition to that obviously wouldn't be classed as family-sized units, but is an uplift of housing on the site and is, in officers' view, making efficient use of land. In reference to the retention of the tree, I think the concern is probably around the retention of the lime tree, which is the large category B tree, which you can see from the street, which is next to the site and is being retained. I think there's some discussion around the yew tree, although that's a category C tree, which is of relatively poor quality, that was located at the front of the site, and there's never been an objection to the loss of that tree. I think there may be some mix-up between the lime tree and the yew tree in terms of the value that they provide to the street scene. But the trees which are of visual amenity value and do contribute to the character of the area would be retained on the site.
Is that okay, Councillor?
Thank you.
Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Chairman. I've just got a question in regards to the planning history, which maybe the officers can shed some light on. So, there's been 3 applications originally, where there have been 9 flats, if you want to call them. All 3 times it's been dismissed on appeal. The applicant mentioned that the reason for the dismissal was purely for size and bulk and wasn't for the actual flats themselves. I mean, we're not here to comment on the entrepreneurial spirit of applicants. That's beyond our remit, and we shouldn't be considering that. But the reason I'm asking this question is, if it was purely on size and bulk, why was there an application for 2 5-bed properties? Why wouldn't this application have been done without the application of 5-bed? I just wanted to ask the officers, was there something more than just size and bulk, or is this being used as leverage now? Because if it's just size and bulk, why was there a need to do a 2 5-bed one? That's only my...
I don't really want to put officers in that position, but basically the market it's done by... How can I say it without getting myself into trouble? If the applicant thinks that's a better avenue to get what they want in the end, there's nothing for us to say. We take the money for the applications in a case further forward. That's all we can really say.
Totally accept that.
I know you understand that. You're a businessman yourself, so that's fine. One thing I will say about this application, we have gone... The London plan is the most disastrous thing that London's ever had, and I'm not going to go political on that because that's another thing. But we've actually got more spaces, parking spaces on this site than the London London plan allows. I do agree that there is some issues around this about amenity and stuff, but you know, it's the market. You know, two bedrooms houses probably down that road will cost nearly £500,000 each. It is relevant to what's going to go on.
My comment is just for the officers to confirm that the refusal on appeal was purely on size and bulk. Because if that's the case, and if we're taking this as a like for like in terms of size and bulk, then like fellow councillors have said, our hands are tied. Was that definitely the case?
I'll get Chris to answer.
Yeah, thank you. And I agree. The planning history is quite confusing. It took me quite a while to go back through the original planning applications and certainly the appeal decision. I think it's a really good question. I think the main point really is that the scale, bulk and massing was approved by the appeal inspector for the 2 5-bed dwellings, and this footprint, the scale, bulk and mass sits within that envelope. So it's very difficult for us to even come to a different opinion on what that and how this development has now come forward if the appeal decision carries such significant weight in the assessment of the proposal. Thank you.
Okay, just a couple of things. Councillor Burrows.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say that in the years that I was Cabinet Member, I only ever had one petition about speed in this road, and that was in 13 years. So it was thoroughly looked at then, but obviously if things change, it's down to petitioners to petition the relevant Cabinet Member now. But our hands are tied with this site, unfortunately. It is what it is, and you've already alluded to the fact that as a developer you are going to get as much meat on the bone as you can once you've got an appeal. So because it's up for approval, I think we've got to go with officer's recommendation, and I'd like to propose that. But I would like to take up the point you made about the amenity space. If we can put a condition in that that's protected when it's actually landscaped, to stop vehicles actually going over it or near it or causing harm.
Before I get a second, I've just got a few points that I want to just tighten up. So one was that. Yeah. The other one is to make sure that parking is allocated to the flats. Okay, I know it's in there, but I just want to make sure that the audience knows about that. And obviously the landscaping with the other plants that are planted in that rear area that will be help the environment. So we'll just go back to those, make sure. I know those things are in there, but I just want to make sure that we try, even though we might not want to win, we try and make a win where we can. So, I'm proposed. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Cawthorne, thank you. Seconded. Can I have a show of hands, those in favour of this application? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. That's passed with those further conditions. Okay, so we move on to item 8, which is the Harrow Wembley Society model. Engineer, Roxburgh Park, Eastcote. Just have a quick pit stop here, so we'll just change the seats. Whenever you're ready, Owen, yeah?
Thank you, Chair. The next item is item 8, Harrow Wembley Society Model Engineers, which is based in Roxburgh Park. Just a couple of updates before I start the presentation. There was an addendum attached which refers to the wording of conditions 3, 4 and 5. The conditions relate to the repositioning of a porta cabin, the cladding of the porta cabin and the removal of the second porta cabin from the site. Basically, it's given the applicant a bit longer to actually carry out those works. Initially, it mentioned 4 months. The reworded condition gives them 6 months to carry out those works. And secondly, condition 4 has also been changed, the wording, to ensure the cladding meets fire safety standards. So the application relates to retrospective provision of one porta cabin with painted finished timber cladding to provide ticket office and community space related to the Harrow Wembley train park in Roxburgh Park. If you see there, you have the site location plan. It's located to the south of the park. You see it there. It's also within an area of metropolitan open land, so designated metropolitan open land, which provides similar, I suppose, policy restrictions as the Greenbelt policies. So here you have a bird's eye view of the plan there. So if you see to the north of the site, you have the residents of Boylan Drive. The site is not within a conservation area, and it does lie, as stated, within metropolitan open land. So this just gives you a contextual aerial. I suppose what's useful is the indicative property boundary, which is highlighted in white, just divides the site from the residents on Boylan Park. You have the clubhouse to the top right. You have a railway track that goes around the site, that's over to the top right, and also the car park associated with the use is located to the south of the park. So here we have the existing site plan on the left. Just for, I suppose, an update also, that there is 2 existing porta cabins on site at present. As part of the assessment, we have managed to relocate one of the porta cabins to a less sensitive location, which is located on the proposed site plan on the right hand side, with the scheme also including the removal of the porta cabin at a later date. So this also shows you the proposed floor plan and elevation. It will provide additional floor space for the model train use, to be used as a ticket office and also to hold events. Justification has been provided as part of the application, and that has been included within the principle of development of the report. I suppose on the bottom you can see the cladding, which we've managed also to secure during the course of the application. It's a feather boarded cladding, which would ensure that it is less sensitive to the surrounding green park. So just give you a context of the site. So the building in view on the right is the actual clubhouse. It's quite difficult to see, but the porta cabins are located within that tree growth as circled in the photograph. So you have the porta cabin there shown from the view from the car park. At the moment it's unclad, however we do have a condition which allows up to 6 months to get that cladded. And this is the existing view from north of the railway. Again, it's not very clear from longer views, the porta cabins, which for us as officers ensures that it protects the openness of the metropolitan land. So again, we have a panoramic view of the western boundary with the properties on Harefield Road screened behind the vegetation. And I guess this is the main viewpoint that you have of the residents' properties along Harefield Road. Again, there's quite a lot of screening there, which officers are satisfied would ensure that their amenity would be protected. A key point would be there is 22 metres distance between the porta cabin and the rear boundaries of these residents' properties. That's to the end of their gardens. So there is sizable distance in terms of the location of porta cabin. Okay, so in general, the applicant, Harrow and Wimbley, is a small voluntary group. Oversees the Roxholm Park Miniature Railway. This is a local amenity attraction that benefits the wider community. Through the application process, the established needs for the additional structure has been demonstrated. Amendments have been sought that address our policy concerns with the removal of 2 porta cabins, thereby ensuring that the metropolitan open land is protected. The site has, as demonstrated through the photos, is screened from the nearest neighbours with the minimum 22 metres distance to the boundary fences. This is also through significant vegetation. Overall, officers are satisfied that the open land will be retained, and given the design changes to the porta cabin, we're satisfied that it would remain sympathetic to the landscape. Conditions 3, 4 and 5 are specific to relocation, cladding and removal of the secondary porta cabin. A further condition relates to the removal of the porta cabin once the use ceases on the site. So there is a time frame that the porta cabin is removed after the use ceases on the site. On this grounds, officers recommend approval subject to conditions.
Thank you, Owen. That's great. I don't think Mr. Murphy's here. Is the applicant here? Mr. Hall, Chris Hall? Yes, if you'd like to come forward. Who's got the slides then? Okay, Ms. Chris, you've got 5 minutes.
Good evening. Thank you, Chairman. I'm a member of the Harrow and Wembley Society of Model Engineers. I've been a member for about 5 years. The actual railway access itself consists of about a half a mile of track set in landscape grounds, which provides steam and electric rides for local people. It's been there since 1978, and the area is specifically rented from Harrow Council for that purpose. The railway is operated by the body I'm a member of, the Harrow and Wembley Society of Model Engineers. We're all a volunteer group of people. We were founded in 1936, and we built, maintain and run the railway on behalf of the local people. We're a not-for-profit organisation, and all our income generated from fares and subscriptions is ploughed back into maintaining the railway and for local services. We operate every Sunday afternoon during the summer and hold special events for the local communities over Easter, Halloween and Christmas. Last year we carried around about 4,000 passengers. Our railway site also provides a destination for families at the weekend, for whom we've provided tables, benches. They bring their picnics and the like, and during public running days typically we attract around about 1,000 visitors to the site, as well as giving around about 300 visits. Sorry, can I go back to slide 2, please? Thank you. So, slide 2 here shows the railway on Easter, which is the first running day of 2024, and I think you can see that there's a lot of people all queuing up to ride. So on that day, I think we did 471 children had rides around the railway, and on the site there's 4 engines, 3 are in steam. Anyway. So, sorry, next slide, please. I'm sorry they're blacked out, but we don't have any pictures without people. We're all about people and community, but obviously they had to be taken out. So this picture here shows our station and people getting onto the train ready for their journey around the site. Again, note there's lots of people. It is really all about people. So we're not just about providing rides. We do a lot more as well for the community. We have a number of clubs we run for local people. So we run a double O gauge like Hornby set up for young people, typically between the ages of 5 and 13. We provide a club for teenagers who under supervision get experience from elder engineers to teach them technical skills, confidence, resilience and taking responsibility. We facilitate parties of scouts, cubs, special needs children. We have school visits and we host birthday parties. It's really a special day for these children. We're very much focused on children, providing a special time for them. It also provides a membership social club for people like myself who are part of the team. There's about 75 of us. And recently the BBC has made 2 documentaries about what we do. They like what we do. They think it's very interesting. And there's also a podcast out in the local on Harrow about what we do as well. So I think we're pretty special. So why do we need, sorry, next slide. Why do we need the additional space? Well, we need the additional space because, so this shows a children's party actually within the porter cabin. As Owen has mentioned, it's already on site. But it's all about smiling faces. So why do we need this extra space? It's because our clubhouse now contains 11 carriages, 10 locomotives. Due to increasing demand for the rides, we have all the workshop machinery and equipment necessary to undertake all aspects of maintenance and repair for the whole railway. And we also include a signal box which we have to use to keep the railway safe in its operation. And quite frankly, we've outgrown our clubhouse. To host children's parties and groups in the past, we would have erected a marquee. But most of our members now are in their 70s, and it's beyond us to raise it every time we want to put on a party. So we can't regularly put that up anymore. Another issue is taking tickets. Currently, we just put up a gazebo, and the gazebo is not suitable for secure or dry. We've been looking at new facilities for an extension, but we couldn't find the resources for it, so we came with the idea with a porta cabin.
I'm afraid I have to stop you there.
Okay. I think you get the gist.
I get the gist,
Yes.
and when my son was little, we did come and ride on your train, so it's, I don't have to declare that as an interest, but it's a long time ago. Okay, is there anybody got any questions? Yes, Councillor Corporal.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hall. Yes, I'm very familiar with the site, use Roxbourne Park quite frequently. I'm slightly confused. You're talking about additional space, and yet what's being presented to us here on Figure 7, and it may be just me that's getting confused, but you appear to be going from 2 porta cabins to 1. So I'm not sure where the additional space is coming in, quite the reverse. Am I misunderstanding what's been presented here?
Sorry, could you put your microphone on, please?
Originally, it was just the clubhouse on site, which we've completely outgrown. And so we spoke with our landlord, Harrow, who gave us permission to put 2 porta cabins on site. And then we found we needed planning permission. So now we need to remove one.
I can answer that question. The porta cabins shouldn't have been there. Right, so now they're unconsented. They're unconsented.
We haven't got consent from Hillingdon, but we've got consent from Harrow's, but we didn't realise we needed consent from Hillingdon.
Please.
Sorry, Doug.
Yes, I was interested because I thought this was pretty near the boundary with Harrow, and I'm rather surprised it's before us. But anyway,
it is in Hillingdon.
But my follow-up question then is around. You'll be aware from the report that concerns have been raised about the potential for antisocial behaviour. May I ask whether that's something that you've come across or experienced or seen, or whether in your judgment there's any likelihood of that from what's being proposed? I'm interested in your take on what's being put forward.
The porta cabins have been on site for about 16 months, and during that time there's been one tag that's put on the back of the building. We're on site at least 2 days every week, in the summer more often, and we check out and make sure that everything is secure. The other point I wanted to make was that the site is completely fenced, so you can't get into it. The porta cabins are on the side of the site and will be moved further into the middle, or further away from the fence. So it's less likely to get graffitiized, if that's the right word.
Thank you.
Any other questions? You may take your seat. Thank you very much. Okay. Go straight to the floor, I think. Who wants to take this away first? Councillor Corporal. Councillor Singh.
Just picking up on the last point about antisocial behaviour, I didn't see too much about it by way of officer comment in the report. I mean, do we take it as part of due process with the case officer that we would explore that and perhaps consult with the local safer neighbourhood team or anything like that? Is that something that would have been done? Thank you.
Owen, would you take that?
Yeah, we did address it in paras 7.51 to 7.54. In general, we felt that the nature of the use did not require a consultation with the Metropolitan Police. There is mitigation measures to ensure that with the relocation of the porta cabin, I suppose there's queues as well with a hedging around that would potentially visually put a queue in place for any antisocial behaviour taking place. We also feel that, you know, with the gates being locked at the weekend, this also discourages potential antisocial behaviour. So on balance, we felt there was no real significant concern there to warrant a refusal on that grounds.
Councillor Corbyn.
Thank you.
Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is good opportunity for the young kids. Only my Councillor Corson, he already asked a question regarding the antisocial behaviour. Any light system over there on night time or anything, just regarding the antisocial behaviour?
Owen, do you want to pick that up?
Sorry, could you repeat?
Is there any lighting?
From my understanding, there wouldn't be any lighting in play, but there is a the gates are locked at night, which would ensure access is prevented once the use has not been in operation.
Thank you. I think if everything fine, I propose the officer's recommendation.
Thank you very much. So that's proposed. Before we go to seconding, I just want to make sure that the cladding is make sure that it's fire retardant. Yeah.
Yes, we've reworded the condition. It's included in the addendum to ensure it's fire.
Okay, that's fine. So can I second that, Councillor Corson?
Yes, I'm happy to second. I think the applicant has taken reasonable steps to mitigate concerns that are there. I think it's regrettable that the petitioner and indeed the ward councillor, who I believe called this in, is not here or has not given a statement either, as far as I'm aware. So, however, notwithstanding that, I see no reason to not to go with the officer recommendations. Thank you.
I'm proposing second. Can I have a show of hands those in favour of this application? It's unanimous with that addendum. So, next one up is number 9, 140 Fairholm Crescent, Hayes.
Thank you, Chairman. Item 9 relates to a planning application at the site 140 Fairholm Crescent. The application seeks planning permission to add an additional bedroom to an existing 6-bed HMO. It should be noted that a certificate of lawfulness was recently granted at the site for the use of the property as a 6-bedroom HMO, and therefore the existing use of the site is lawful. As such, the subject of this assessment is restricted to the impacts derived from the additional bedroom only. Here we have a location plan. The development site is located on the north side of Fairholm Crescent. The surrounding area is residential and is characterised by single and 2-storey semi-detached houses. Here we have a constraints plan. As you can see, the development site has no notable constraints. Here we have a site plan that's showing the extent of the site. It's set back from the road and positioned within the within the street. Here we have the existing floor plans. As you can see, the site has 6 bedrooms at ground floor level, all with en suites, as well as a communal kitchen area. At first floor, it has a communal storage area and communal kitchen. To the rear of the site is a garden, and to the front is a forecourt which provides parking for up to 2 vehicles. Here we have the existing front and rear elevation plans for the building. It should be noted that no external changes are proposed as part of this scheme. Here is the existing side elevation and section. It is noted that no external changes are proposed to this part of the scheme either. Here we have the proposed floor plans. As you can see, the only changes proposed are the conversion of the existing first floor storage space into an additional bedroom, the erection of a new cycle store in the rear garden, and new waste facilities to the front of the site. The property will otherwise remain as existing. Here we have the proposed front and rear elevation plans showing the property will visually remain as existing. Here we have the proposed side elevation and section plans showing that the property will visually remain as existing. Here is a bird's eye view of the site showing its location within the road. Here is the decision notice showing the site is already lawfully a 6-bedroom HMO. Officers have also undertaken a site visit on 2 different occasions since the submission of the application, and have confirmed that the site is in fact laid out as a 6-bedroom HMO. Here we have some photos. So You can see that the rooms are all numbered as you would expect in an ordinary HMO. 6 separate fuse boxes serving the existing HMO. Ground floor shared kitchen. First floor shared kitchen. Rear elevation of the property. Rear garden amenity area. As stated earlier, permission is sought to change to change an existing 6-bedroom HMO into a 7-bedroom HMO. The proposal includes no physical changes to the existing dwelling, and therefore the development would cause no harm to the appearance of the area or the host dwelling. For the reasons outlined in the committee report, it is considered that having one additional person at the property would not give rise to harm upon neighbouring amenities above what already exists. This is the case for the impact upon the local highway network also. Having said that, having had further discussions with the highway officer today, we do feel that there is an amendment to the conditions required, and that would be to insert a condition with regards to the extension of an existing crossover to the front. Whilst it could be reviewed that the 2 spaces at the front could be accessed via the single crossover in order to ensure that safe passage for both road users and cyclist pedestrians, we are proposing to add a condition requiring a new site plan to be submitted denoting the extension to the crossover, which will be secured by a separate highway agreement outside of the planning permission. To ensure the occupancy of the property is capped to 7 people and that the neighbour amenities are protected, a restrictive condition regarding the occupancy for up to 7 people is recommended for the inclusion if permission is granted by members. Overall, for the reasons outlined in this presentation and the committee report, it is recommended that planning permission be granted in accordance with the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chris. Is there written representation from the petitioner? Over to you, Liz.
Thank you, Chair. Yep, we have received a written representation from the petitioner on this item. Dear Councillors, I am writing to formally oppose the application to convert the current 6-bedroom HMO at 140 Fairholm Crescent, Hayes, into a 7-bedroom HMO. Over the past year, since the property has been operating as a 6-bed HMO, several issues have come to light that have significantly impacted the quality of life for nearby residents. Despite being approved as a 6-bed HMO for students, there are often more than 6 residents living at the property at any one time, sometimes including couples and children in rooms designed for single use. There are frequent disturbances during evening hours which disrupt the peace and quiet expected in a residential area. Large amounts of rubbish are frequently left on the driveway, including old duvets, pillows and household waste. This has led to unpleasant smells, attracted vermin and has previously needed council intervention. This remains an ongoing issue as evidenced by recent photographs which are on the up there now. There have been multiple reports of marijuana being smoked at the property, forcing neighbours to close their windows due to the smell. Parking is a significant issue with several cars frequently parked at the property. Rear access is constantly used and residents leave the back doors open, compromising the security of neighbouring properties. This poses a significant safety risk and invites potential theft. The garden is often littered with rubbish and discarded mattresses, creating an ideal habitat for vermin. Residents frequently cook on the decking outside, which is not only unsanitary, but also poses a considerable fire risk. Conclusion: adding an additional unit to an already overcrowded and problematic HMO will exacerbate these issues and further strain the community. The property is already a source of considerable disruption, and increasing its capacity will only worsen the negative impact on the neighbours. We urge the Council to reject the application. Any further expansion would be detrimental to both the immediate neighbours and the wider community. Thank you for your time and attention to this matter. I trust you will carefully consider the concerns raised by residents. And that's from Mrs Bernard on behalf of the petitioners. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. The applicant is Sternlich and Mr. Friedman. Are you present? No, they didn't come. Okay, fine. Well, we'll go straight. HMOs are very popular always. Councillor Burrows, Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. Looking at the photo that was put in there, can I ask officers, has ASB had to visit this site, and if so, what actions have they taken? I also understand that the site is already licensed as an HMO, is that correct? And if it is, what action have our licensing team taken over the complaints from residents at this site?
Over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor. I think it's important that we be clear about the difference between the planning process for the HMO and the licensing process. So the licensing process obviously sits outside of planning. The regulations would be controlled by a different department within the council. What I can say is that I did try to undertake a search regarding ASB reports. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to locate any. That doesn't necessarily mean that there haven't been reports, but I can only access the information that's available to me. The certificate that's in place is a certificate of lawful development, which there are limits to the amount of control you can deploy. I think the certificate that's been granted does demonstrate that it's lawfully operationable as a HMO. The licensing, as I said, would be dealt with separately, and that would be a question for the HMO licensing department. But in terms of the element of control, what you've seen in the petition is obviously not a very nice arrangement with the rubbish in the front and back garden. What this development does bring forward is a site plan that includes a location for that rubbish to be implemented. We have enforcement powers to undertake enforcement action should those bins not be placed in that location. In terms of the control of the behaviour of the residents, that's really outside of the planning process. But we are limited in terms of the assessment that we can make. The assessment is not based on whether this is an acceptable HMO, it is whether the impact is significant enough to justify refusal by adding the additional individual. Thank you.
Through you, if I may, that's what I was trying to get at, just what the impact is.
Yeah, just one second. I'm going to just get Ros to just show how much we've beefed it up from going from flipping for that one more. So.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So as Chris said, in terms of the certificate of lawfulness, we don't have the ability to sort of impose planning conditions as such on that. But in this application, where we are only looking at the addition of the extra room, it does give us some sort of flexibility in terms of adding some planning conditions. So what we have proposed in your reports, as you'll have seen, for example, we have asked for details of the cycle storage, an EV charging point, despite the fact that there's already 2 parking spaces there. We've actually asked for full details in relation to the waste storage. So, you know, essentially what we're sort of saying is we've kind of gone as far as we can in terms of proposing conditions, and those conditions in sort of addressing the additional room would also help in addressing the other 6 rooms, if that makes sense.
Okay, Councillor Davis.
My question, Chairman, is relating to fire. So I'm just a bit concerned about that access onto the property. Do we have any comments from the fire brigade on this? Because it's already a narrow entrance.
I got it. Yeah, the licence states fire procedures, and the fire brigade has to come out to that site on a regular basis to get a certificate before they can have it as a HMO. Okay. So they would have covered that off.
I just don't.
Okay. No, it's a good
I
question.
don't feel
It's a good
comfortable
question. Anyway, anything else you want to add to that, Chris?
Yeah, I'll just point that we've seen the existing and proposed plans. The internal arrangement where you see that access is not changing. Therefore, it's an existing layout which we really wouldn't be in a position to be able to dictate or control at this stage. Thank you.
Councillor Cawthorne.
Thank you. The objector raised concerns about the the use of the existing units, suggestions that there will be small family units in what's supposed to be student accommodation. Obviously there have been comments about waste storage and dumping of mattresses and what have you. Is it within the scope of this committee to do anything to condition any of that sort of thing? Thank you.
Sorry, I missed the end part of that.
No, we can't go any further than we have with the conditions that we put forward.
No.
About more people visiting the site.
Yeah.
The thing for us now is that because it was under lawfulness, a lot of things could happen which it won't come out to our remit. Now it's not that they are in condition of losing their licence if they break certain conditions of that licence, if that makes sense. Am I correct then?
I think what councillor would be looking for is a form of management plan, and I wouldn't see that the addition of one additional bedroom would be justified to place that condition on this application. Okay.
Sorry, may I come back? Sorry. So, okay, what I heard there was, although there are concerns about misuse of these units, allegedly, there's nothing we can do to control that. That would be the remit of some other committee or member after intervention.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Gailey.
Thank you, Chair. It mentions here that there was a visit by the case officer in February last year. Was it the licensing officer, planning, private sector housing? And secondary question, for those visits, would they normally give notice? And how long would the notice be?
We're not required to give notice, but we would normally, in this instance, provide notice because you're trying to get access into people's rooms. The owner, where you've got a single family dwelling, it's a lot easier to arrange that access because you're speaking to one point of contact, and if it's not a rented property, it's fairly easy to get access. In this instance, the case officer themselves has undertaken actually more than 2 site visits, but the reason why we've said 2 site visits is because that's what we've got the photos for. But we've actually undertaken more than that, and that's the planning case officer that's undertaken those. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So the pictures that we've seen, they were taken by the officer himself?
Correct, yeah.
And he found that the number of people occupying at that time were within limits?
Yeah, so we wouldn't actually be checking the number of occupants at the time. If there was an allegation post this planning application, if members are minded to approve, we have got a condition which restricts the number of people residing in the property to 7. Now, I know there's been some comments around visitors, but if you've got a 5 or 6 bedroom property, or even a 3 or 4, you could have up to 6 or 8 people living in that property at any one time, and we wouldn't be restricting visitors visiting that property because of the number of people that are living there. Therefore, it wouldn't be justified to do the same here. Thank you.
Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Chair. May I ask the officer regarding that parking spaces? Is 6 HMO already, and the 7th one now only 2 parking spaces there? Is enough?
I will refer to Dr. Tilley in a moment, but just to repeat the fact that there are 2 on site at the moment, and they serve 6 people. The addition of 1 additional bedroom is unlikely to give rise to a significant increase in movements or parking need, which would justify refusal. But we have consulted with the local highway authority, so I'll pass over to Alan in case you've got any comments.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor. The London plan is silent on parking standards for houses of multiple occupation, so we refer to the local plan, which requires 0.5 of a space for up to 6 occupants, so that would be 3 car parking spaces, but bear in mind that these are maximum standards. But what I would welcome the opportunity through this planning application is to regularise the situation where we've got vehicles bumping up the curb to access the hard standing. Not only is that illegal, it's also damaging the council's footway and the services that might be running underneath it. So I would like the opportunity to take this opportunity to have that situation remedied. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Davies.
Just want to go back to the condition about refuge and waste. Can we put in there that there has to be enough for 6 allocated rooms? Because this, up until the last boundary change, was in my ward. So, and I know for a fact that I've got a number of HMOs, and there isn't adequate bins. So is there a way that we can allocate that there has to be 1 bin per room, or something like that, to prevent the residents having to put up with what they've got at the moment? I understand their hands are tied on other stuff.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. So just for clarity, we would be seeking bins for all 7 rooms, not the 6. So it would be for 7, and those details would be assessed by the case officer when the application come in, and they would be reviewed by the line manager. We would be advocating that 7 individual bins would be required. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davis.
Thank you. And on that, Chairman, I would be happy to go with officers' recommendations, providing what we've discussed tonight is put in place.
Okay, so it's been proposed with the additional the parking standards and the other bins and stuff and everything else. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Burrows, thank you. So it's proposed and seconded. Going to show hand. All those in favour? Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, we go to item 10. Exmouth Road.
Thank you, Chair. The next item is item 10, 100 Exmouth Road. It seeks retention of a double-storey rear and side extension with amendments to the fenestration and height of the existing single-storey rear extension. Just for clarity, planning permission has been previously granted last year for largely the same extension in terms of design, scale and footprint. However, following enforcement investigation, it was noted a discrepancy in the positioning of the neighbouring property's footprint at number 102 Exmouth Road. As such, the applicant is unable to build out the approved scheme as such, and a follow-up planning application is what we're looking at today. But generally, the design is very similar to what was previously approved. So here's the site in red. It's located on the east of Exmouth Road. It's not within any conservation area or designated location. So this is a bird's eye view of the site. And here you have the pre-existing plans and elevations, which shows there was a garage and utility room at single-storey level along the boundary with 102. That was demolished as part of this previous scheme. And this is the scheme as built, with an accurate survey of the neighbouring property on the left. So if you can see on the left of the plan, you see a single-storey extension of the neighbouring property. So that is as surveyed by, officers have visited both sites and carry out surveys on the plans to see the accuracy, and that is based on the surveys. And here is the extension as built. So it's as you can see at the front elevation, it's set down from the roof by 0.5 of a metre, set back at first floor level by 0.5 of a metre. To the rear, it is 3.3 metres in depth, which is in line with, I suppose, the policy that we have in play. In terms of the set-in from the boundary, it is noted it isn't set in the 1 metre from the boundary at the front or to the rear. It's a 0.6 to the front and 0.45 to the rear of the property. However, as you will see from photographs of the street scene, there are quite a number of properties with build-ups right up to the boundary. Now, this plan, I suppose, gives you an idea of the previous permission, which is highlighted in red in the context of the current application, which is highlighted in grey. So the red is very much in line with the footprint of the application site. Now, on the left-hand corner, there's a horizontal line located on the left-hand corner. There it is. There. That was the previous location of the footprint under the previous approval. As you can see, it was sited slightly further into the rear garden, so give the impression that it was only going to extend 1.6 metres beyond that roof line. The actual extension beyond the single-storey rear extension is 2.4 metres. As you can see in the shadow grey, the single-storey rear extension of the neighbour. So here we have photos of the front elevation of the extension as built. In terms of the overall design, what is not set in the 1 metre, it is finished to a good standard. The brickwork matches the existing. It's set back from the front elevation and set down from the roof, which we would recommend in terms of our policies. Again, this is just a closer view of that in terms of the materials. And then this is the rear extension at the back. I suppose on the top left corner, you have it taken from the application site, and on the bottom right corner, you also see it in the context of the neighbouring property. Okay, so this kind of gives you a general, I suppose, example of the developments along the street. There are a variety of extensions on Exmouth Market or Exmouth Road. 129 Exmouth Road, as you see, is built right out to the boundary. Similarly, 120 and 122 Exmouth Road. Again, similar examples of extensions that fill in that gap. Okay, and there 129 Exmouth Road was a successful appeal that was allowed at appeal, and 135 Exmouth Road. You see the edge of the boundary there where you have the two-storey extension. In terms of assessment, the design will be similar in overall size, scale and design as previously approved. The main difference is the extension beyond 102 Exmouth Road by the additional 0.8 of a metre, which is due to the fact that the neighbour was plotted incorrectly in the previous application. As can be viewed from the street photographs, there are a variety of extensions along Exmouth Road. As per the approved assessment, the extension as built would not cause harm to the character and appearance of the street. In terms of neighbours' amenity, this is addressed thoroughly in paragraphs 7.21 to 7.56 of the committee report. It is noted that the extension slightly breaches the 45-degree line of the neighbouring property. You probably up here. It just slightly breaches it. So a daylight sunlight assessment was requested, and in terms of this daylight sunlight, it complies fully with the BRE guidelines. This is highlighted in Table 2 and Table 4 of the report. Overall, whilst the extension appears slightly deeper into the rear garden from the neighbours' properties, it would comply with the depth we normally allow for rear extensions, and given that it meets the daylight sunlight tests, officers are considered that there would be no detrimental impact on amenity of neighbours. On this basis, the application is recommended for approval subject to conditions.
Thank you, Owen. We have a petitioner, Honami Matasumoto, I think that's correct, and Michael Oakes, if you'd like to come to the table. Forgive my pronunciation. I think it's Matasumoto. I'm going to put it close. Thank you. You've been here all evening, so you probably know you've got 5 minutes, 4 green, 1 amber, and red I'll stop you. Okay, thank you very much. Whenever you're ready. No, you can share your time as much as whatever you want to do. So you just press the time will start.
This case is very complex with many unfortunate factors, together with a wrongly drawn plan by applicant's architect, Kevin Dosted. Our side wall was drawn much longer than actual. I emphasize on conflict of interest, that is with the Hillingdon Council, as we feel that the Council has made an oversight in decision making, as in not applying local planning recommendation to set back the side and rear wall of the rear double-story extension by 1 meter, well, not even by 50 centimeters. Our orientation to this extension is particularly unique and critical, positioned to south from us, and it goes much deeper at the rear, but the Council did not apply this recommendation. Michael will go into more details on other approvals granted on our street, but our case is by far the worst case scenario. It is not about ownership of the land, etc., mentioned in the planning officer's current report. It is about fairness, responsibility, and democracy of the Council to the affected neighbourhood, not paying enough attention to each individual and very critical details of the planning applications. We trusted the Council, but the same local recommendation was not applied to this case. We believe the Council unfairly treated us in this case. For this reason, we strongly believe that the Council is not in a position to be able to make a fair decision whether to approve this application. We would like to ask the elected councillors to leave this as no decision at this stage. Thank you.
If this were the first planning application, we would be asking this committee for a refusal prior to asking for small alterations occurring to this scheme, which would enable approval. We would kindly and unusually request that the elected councillors reach an unusual no decision on this application at this point. Having carefully read the planning officer's detailed report, we understand councillors will be minded to approve this second application. But for the sake of all residents within Hillingdon who might in the future be detrimentally affected by a similar future decision, we hope councillors will consider the following. 1. Whilst the majority of this exhaustive planning report references BRE guidelines and sunlight daylight calculations, the Council's far simpler build first floors, or in this instance the rearmost first floor wing of the extension at least 1 metre away from any shared side boundary, is far more simple and far more apt to use, and fairer perhaps for everyone. The BRE methodology is far more apt for urban town centre development and perhaps not so apt for suburban roads in Ruislip. 2. Whilst we agree that 2 appeals have been approved in this road, they already met the Council's requirement to be set 1 metre away from shared side boundaries at first floor level. So these 2 appeals of 2019 and 2020 have little relevance in our opinion, and both, due to orientation, create minimal overshadowing to neighbours. 3. None of the other referenced 2-storey side extensions, majority were pre-1980, have extra 2-storey wings jutting further back into the rear gardens, so have little relevance to the problematic aspect of this current application. The only ones that do are the ones at the end of the road that are further to the north. Whilst a no decision may not appear ideal, it has the following points in its favour at this time. A. Elected councillors are able to support the nearest neighbour regarding the council's clear 1 metre side boundary distance policy in this instance. And B. The applicant at 100 Exmouth Road will retain the approval granted earlier in 2024, and as the extension has been rapidly completed, it would perhaps not merit any further enforcement actions by the council. Based on the number of emails sent and received, this has been a crusade by affected neighbours. It was pointed out that it's practically impossible for a planning permission previously granted, whether by clerical mistake or planning policy oversight, to be revoked. This crusade has the sole purpose of bringing these important circumstances in front of the elected planning committee in the hope that an identical planning decision is not made within the suburbs of the Borough of Hillingdon, at least until changes perhaps to current planning guidance were merited. Thank you.
Thank you. Just in time, hold on. Does any councillors have any questions for the petitioner? Councillor Cawthorne?
Just to be clear on what you're advocating then. You're advocating that the matter's deferred, planning a site visit? Can I be clear what you're advocating, please?
We recognise how difficult it is for this planning committee, this elected planning committee, to refuse this application. But we feel that this elected planning committee may be able to at least show some understanding by, I know it's an unusual situation, by considering and deciding that it's very difficult to give a decision on this at this time. I know that that's a strange...
Thank you. Thank you very much. If you'd like to take your seat, that would be great. Thank you. The applicant, Mr. Matt Cabe, is he here? And I've also got the agent, D. Austin, Mr. D. Austin. You've got your 5 minutes as you press the button. Okay.
Good evening, councillors and members of the committee. My name is Kevin D. Austin. I represent KDA Designs Limited, who prepared the drawings for the application for the two-storey side and part rear extension. I just wanted to emphasise, firstly, the pressure that my clients have been put through over the past 6 months. The neighbours at 102 were quite aware of what was being proposed throughout the planning application stage, even after it was granted. It was only until the second floor of the rear extension, or the first floor of the rear extension, was being constructed, that the messages and text messages and emails started to flow from them, and they've been put under unnecessarily extreme stress and anxiety due to the inconsiderate complaints from the plaintiffs. This development has been constructed in total compliance with the approved drawings, albeit the relationship with the properties was slightly inaccurate, which I can accept responsibility for. However, I would have expected any relevant discrepancy to be picked up by the planning officer on his site visit. We often receive requests from planning officers to demonstrate if there's an impact on the neighbouring property, and we didn't receive anything. Also failed to understand how the required amount of signatures can be generated from just 4 households. Over 20 signatures have come from 4 households. I feel it's farcical how genuine support to the petitioner can be given when a development doesn't even affect them. From the street scene, how can anyone be looking to petition, against an objection like this. I don't know. I mean, I don't see why my clients have been prejudiced by the slightly inaccurate relationship we've gone back, we've measured it accurately, we've changed drawings to, it's totally accurate now. We've had a daylight and sunlight assessment done. Everything now complies, as we've heard from the planning officer, with the guidelines and the requirements of the planning department. So I don't know. I feel a decision can be made today, and it should be a positive decision.
Can I just make you aware? I invited at the first planning application. I invited my two neighbours, each side of me, 98 and 102, to my house to show them what we were building. It was very clear that the existing plans was first being built was flush with the back wall of the kitchen, which it still is. Unfortunately, Hanami did not attend that meeting, and she was offered a second meeting to come to the house. Her husband did, and he was okay and acceptable with the plans. We started getting objections when we were on the second floor. Unfortunately, I have two young kids, and they were living in another country while I was doing the plans, and there was a rush to get the house built for financial reasons. My house is now complete, fully furnished, and I put all my life savings into it. I am not in a position to amend my house anymore. I really am here under mistakes of other people and not my own. But unfortunately, it's me that's been dragged through it, and my 1-year-old and 3-year-old that I'm trying to provide a future for. There was 9 weeks at the beginning to object. Why wasn't it? When the neighbour was brought into my house, why didn't he raise his concerns then? Why wait till I'm built? And why pester me with hundreds of emails? We just hope you can consider this favourably, and we can put this to bed today. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? No? Would you like to take your seat the same? As you're aware, the civil dispute is not really our concern. The planning application is our concern before us. And I will say this, that it is not the officers of Hillingdon Council to make sure plans are correct. It's for the applicant to make sure the drawings are correct. Okay? They should have site visits by the architect to make sure the dimensions and everything are right. So I'm going to defend my officers because I know they've done it wrong. On that basis, Councillor Cawthorne, I think you indicated first.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I suppose my first...
I beg your pardon, I'd have a written response from a councillor, so...
Okay.
It's only short. Sorry, beg your pardon.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we have received something from the ward councillors on this, which says South Ruislip's councillors wish the committee to note that both the petitioner and the applicant have engaged with us regarding this application. In our discussions, we have advised all parties to work closely with council officers to ensure that the proper processes are followed in bringing this application before the committee for determination. We respectfully ask committee members to carefully consider the information presented by officers, the petitioner and the applicant as part of their deliberations on this application. We trust that this balanced approach will help ensure a fair and informed decision. Thank you for your attention. And that's from Councillor Mills and Councillor Macarola. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I should have picked that up. Councillor Cawthorne.
Thank you. My first question was really around process, and Chairman, you made the point about the applicant bearing responsibility for submitting application correct information on plans in the first place, and this is the second instance this evening where we've had a case of this. I just wonder whether, as a matter of course, though, through our planning process, what stage do these things get picked up? Because I'm just interested in how it comes to life.
Sorry to interrupt you. I'll let Ros read you a declaration when they sign an application, which covers what I've just said. Do you want to read that out loud?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, just to reiterate what the Chairman's already said, it is the applicant's responsibility to submit, factually correct application. We would expect the plans to be accurate. It's not practical or reasonable to expect a planning officer on site to measure every single dimension. We do carry out site visits where required. We obviously use our judgment to kind of, assess whether things, appear accurate, but it's the applicant's responsibility to make an accurate application. And as part of the planning application form, there is a declaration at the end where the agent or the applicant signs to confirm that to the best of their knowledge they've made an accurate application. So I just wanted to be clear on that. And then I suppose the risk essentially is for the applicant, because as we've seen in this case and also the case at the start of the meeting, if the plans are inaccurate and the development approved cannot be built to those plans, they're left in a position where they don't have a planning permission, and then they have to seek to regularise that. So that's the position that we're in, and that's the sort of consequences around it. So it is really important for all applicants to make sure their applications are completely accurate.
Okay. Lisa, I did have a question relating to this application. I'll move on. So the objector made the point about the 1 metre rule and inconsistent application of that, allegedly. Can I just have an officer comment on that, whether we're departing from that in this instance, and are we creating a precedent in doing so?
In terms of, there is a slight departure from the 1 metre rule. However, under the previous application, we did also consider the 1 metre rule and felt it was acceptable in that instance too. Although that cannot be built outright, it also has some weight on it. In terms of reviewing the street scene itself, I suppose the 1 metre rule generally tries to give some space between properties in terms of street character. We feel that, you know, although it's not set in 1 metre from the boundary, there is 0.6 of a metre to the front, and the difference between the flanks of both elevations goes up to 1.1 metre, I think. So generally, that's at upper floor level. So, you know, there is a level of openness retained to the front. In terms of the back, although it does reduce to 0.4, I think, of a metre at the back, and as you can see on the plan above, it slightly clips the 45-degree test. Because of that, we did request the daylight sunlight assessment, and following receipt of that, we thoroughly examined it, and it passed all the daylight sunlight requirements. So in general, we feel comfortable that on balance that this is acceptable.
Thank you, Owen. Any other
questions? Can I just observe that, I mean, so that's less than half a metre then, in other words, just to be clear?
Just above, so half a metre.
Yeah. At the back, just above to the front, and at the back, less than half, yeah.
David?
Chairman, can we ask the officers, was there any, I don't actually know if we're allowed to ask this, so far in now.
You asked it.
I'm going to ask it anyway.
Go on.
Were building control contacted, or have we got any reports of building control during this development? So, when it started, was there any calls, any cases put in? I couldn't see it in the report, I'm just wondering.
It's not.
I know it's not, but I do have a method behind my madness.
I know you do, don't worry. I know where you're going. But
perhaps if you'd like to explain, because building control records would be confidential, and as I'm sure you're aware, so an applicant can choose to use a third-party registered building control approver, so it wouldn't necessarily have come to the council in any case.
I'm more worried that if, planning enforcement rather than building control. Was planning enforcement called out by any time during the development? Sorry, we are late into the day here.
Yeah, I can take up that. I suppose during the building stage, it became aware that there was concerns about the footprint, and an enforcement investigation was opened, and a site inspection was carried out. On the basis of that site inspection, a warning letter was sent out, and I suppose that the knock-on effect is the retention application in front of us that we are looking to decide. So, you know, in terms of enforcement powers, they did visit the site. Planning officers also visited the site to do further measurements to ensure the accuracy of the plans, and you know, on the scheme that's in front of us, it is in terms of compliance at the back, in terms of the depth out and so forth. Whilst there is a slight departure on the 1 metre, generally we feel comfortable that the actual design and the amenity issues are still protected.
Okay, thank you, Chairman.
Okay. Councillor Gillick.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted some clarification that some discrepancy was discovered, and at the time that it was discovered, was there any remedy to deal with this, or there was nothing could be done?
It was discovered, I suppose, as the building was going up, and the enforcement investigation was open. So it was the extension was near complete, I suppose, or getting to a stage of getting to the roof. So in terms of the actual action that was taken, an enforcement officer went on site. Obviously, if they felt that there was a need for a stop notice to be served, they would have done so. However, the actual alterations from the approved plans were minimum enough and it was considered to send a warning letter with the view of an application coming forward, so we could assess it in terms of our policies.
Right. Any more questions? Okay. Someone's got to make a decision, so it's up to you. Councillor Davis.
Chairman, I don't agree with the open to interpretation of the 1 metre. I do think that something like that should be more formal, but we are tied with what we've got in front of us. Again, we're tied and we're put into a situation that maybe we shouldn't have been in again here tonight, and through no fault of our own. So I will move with officers' recommendations begrudgingly.
Yeah, that's proposed. Ross just wants to say something.
Yeah, I just felt like I'd like to make a clarification. So just to be clear, officers aren't recommending this for approval because it's already built. We've given careful consideration to it on its merits, in relation to the policy. So, just referencing the 1 metre distance, for example, yes, there's a technical breach of that policy. But if we refuse this and there's a subsequent appeal, the inspector is going to go out there and have due regard to the street scene, the character of the area. And we really feel that there is quite a mix in the area. We've clearly seen there's a number of examples of extensions built up to the boundary. Any inspector is going to take that into account, and we don't consider that this proposal is harmful when viewed in that context. So I just wanted to be crystal clear. Officer's recommendation is based on the merits of the scheme, not anything to do with it being retrospective.
Councillor Cawthorne.
Yes, I think what would have worried me is departing from policy in a way that undermined our policy approach more generally. If we're saying that the 1 metre is something we look at in the round, in the context of where it is a number of other factors, then I can reluctantly live with it. And I will say to the objectors, because it's important they hear this, yes, we're elected to be councillors and serve on committees, but our scope for decision making is very, very limited, as you will have heard all evening, quite honestly. So I think it's important that's understood. And so with a heavy heart, I'm actually going to second this officer recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Cawthorne. And I will also say I will take it up with officers offline. I've already got some ideas, so this doesn't occur again in the future. So maybe a declaration on the application form to state that drawings but we'll come to some wording on that anyway. But so I'm proposed and seconded. Can I have show of hands, all those in favour? Reluctantly, I have to add. Okay, so that's 5, 6 yeses and 1 abstention. Okay, thank you very much. Now we go to so that's approved, and I will go now to item 11, which is 38 Bar. Yeah, that's right, Farcot.
Thank you, Chairman. Item 11 relates to a development at Farcot Gardens, number 28. The description of the development is as shown on screen. It's for the conversion of an integral garage to habitable accommodation with alterations to the front fenestration. I'll now take you through some of the plans. So here we have a location plan. You see the site denoted within the pink box. Here is a constraints plan. Committee members will note that the site is not subject to any development plan designations or environmental constraints. Here we have an existing OS map and location plan with the site located within the red edge. Existing ground floor plan. You will see the garage just here. Existing first floor plan, this remains unchanged. Existing second floor plan, this also remains unchanged. And existing roof plan. Here are the existing front and rear elevations. The garage is here. Existing elevations as well. Existing elevations from the other side. An existing section and an existing perspective view. Here we have the proposed location plan showing no external changes. This is the former garage, so this will now be used as a habitable living room. You'll also note that there is a window to be inserted in replacement of the garage door. First floor plan remains the same. Second floor plan remains the same. Proposed roof plan remains the same also. And here we have the garage door being replaced and a change to that front elevation with the window being inserted. Proposed side elevation, and proposed section. Here is the perspective view, so effectively just a 3D version of the front elevation. Here we have a bird's eye view plan and the front elevation of the property as it exists at the moment. So just in terms of the assessment, the application proposes to convert the existing integral garage to a living room to serve the existing dwelling. The residential use of the site is already established, therefore the principle of development is acceptable. The external alterations to the facade would involve the replacement of the garage door with a window to provide light into the newly formed living room. These changes are modest and do not detract from the residential character of the existing properties, therefore they are considered to be acceptable. Turning to highway considerations, the site is located within an area of PTAL 1B, which means that there would be some reliance on the motor vehicle to travel to and from the site. In accordance with the London plan, a residential property of this type would require 0.75 spaces. In essence, that would equate to one space being retained or provided. As indicated on the proposed plans, there is adequate space to the front of the property to retain one vehicle, therefore the proposal will meet the necessary standard. Furthermore, in assessing the scheme, the size of the garage and its ability to comfortably fit a car is considered to be questionable. The internal measurements of the existing garage at its widest and deepest parts measure 3.2 metres by 4.9. According to the local plan parking standards, garages should measure a minimum of 3 metres and 6 metres internally. This document was adopted in 2020, sometime after the approval of the residential development on this estate. And due to the design of cars and motor vehicles changing over time, it would now be considered that the existing garage is not sufficient in size to comfortably fit a motor vehicle. Therefore, removing the garage is not considered to cause any further parking strain. It is noted that the petition raises objection to the proposed conversion of the garage on the grounds of increased parking pressure, disruption to community character, lack of disability justification, and previous past rejections within the planning history. In regard to the increased parking pressure, as stated, the proposal retains one space, which is not only compliant with the London Plan policy standards, but also received no objection from the local highway authority. In terms of character, the proposed changes to the front facade are domestically designed and involve a window being inserted into the front elevation to replace the garage door. The proposed changes are not considered to present a departure from the design of the local residential character. It is noted that an application at number 5 was approved. This application was determined in accordance with the development plan. No exceptional circumstances were considered in the assessment of this application. The same assessment and conclusions were drawn as those set out within this committee report. There are a couple of less recent applications which form planning history on the estate, and these are for the same or similar development. The first is a CLD refused in 2013. However, having reviewed the decision notice, this was due to PD rights being removed from these properties. The second is a householder application which was refused due to the loss of parking. However, this would have been assessed in compliance with the London and local plan, with the previous London and local plan, which set a much higher minimum parking ratio. As such, the only application which would be material to the assessment of this application was the more recent approval at number 85. Regarding the potential use of the property as a HMO, this does not form part of the application, and the property does not benefit from permitted development rights, meaning that any change of use to a HMO would require the benefit of full planning consent. Based on this assessment and the more detailed assessment within the committee report, officers consider that the application is compliant with the development plan and therefore recommend approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chris. Liz, you have a written response from Dr. Aramira, I think it is.
Yes, thank you, Chair. We have got a written submission from the petitioner on this one. I'm writing on behalf of the Hayes Arena Residents Association, representing the interests of 261 households across Farcot Gardens and Divine Way. We strongly object to the planning application for 38 Farcot Gardens, which proposes converting the existing garage into a habitable room with the addition of a new window. This application raises significant concerns about potential impacts on our community. Based on feedback from our residents and precedents set by similar applications, we urge the Planning Committee to refuse this proposal for the following reasons. 1. Increased pressure on parking. The proposed garage conversion will result in the permanent loss of an off-street parking space. Farcot Gardens already faces significant parking congestion, and the removal of any parking facilities will exacerbate the issue. Previous rejections of similar applications have consistently highlighted the detrimental impact of insufficient parking provision on public safety and the quality of life for residents. 2. Disruption of community character. The garage conversion involves altering the property's front elevation by replacing the garage door with a window. This change disrupts the uniform architectural design of Farcot Gardens, which is a key feature of the estate's character and aesthetic value. Maintaining the estate's visual harmony is essential for preserving the community's identity and property values. 3. Lack of disability justification and past rejections. The Hayes Arena estate has granted garage conversions only once and solely on the grounds of addressing disability-related needs. This approval was based on compelling reasons tied to improving the quality of life of the resident. The current application lacks any such justification. Moreover, similar applications in the estate have been rejected in the past due to increased parking pressure and disruption to community character, concerns that are equally relevant in this case. 4. Risk of overcrowding and potential HMO use. Although the current application does not explicitly request a change of use to a HMO, there is a legitimate concern among residents that this conversion could be a precursor to such a use. Similar patterns have been observed in the estate, where initial planning applications led to subsequent requests for HMO conversions. Allowing this development would increase the risk of overcrowding and antisocial behaviour, negatively impacting the neighbourhood. 5. Precedents and community impact. The Hayes Arena estate has experienced significant challenges due to the HMO at 12 Divine Way, which has led to increased emergency service visits and community disruption. Residents fear that approving this application may set a precedent for further profit-driven developments that undermine the community's cohesion and quality of life. Conclusion. For the reasons outlined above, we respectfully request the Planning Committee to refuse this application. Approving this proposal would not only set a harmful precedent, but also jeopardise the well-being and harmony of the Hayes Arena community. We have presented a petition signed by 20 residents, primarily those living near 38 Farcot Gardens, who strongly object to this application. Thank you for considering our representation. We trust that the Planning Committee will prioritise the interests of the local community and the long-term integrity of the Hayes Arena estate. Yours sincerely, Dr. Roberto Ariema, who is the Chair of the Hayes Arena Residents Association. Thank you.
Yeah, do you want to... Yeah.
Sorry, Chairman. I just want, just so that we're completely open and transparent. There is a standard wording used for most conditions in previous decisions which removes PD rights. Now, it is quite specific in stating that it removes PD rights for the properties built as part of this development, but does reference specific extensions, which is very similar to other conditions which I would have reviewed before. So I think on that basis, we just wanted to make sure that committee members understand that HMOs are not specifically referenced in this condition, and therefore you do have the option, should you want to add a specific condition to restrict HMOs.
We'll put that in anyway.
Yeah, just to be doubly sure. Yep. Okay. No problem.
That's fine.
Thank you.
I'm sure committee won't mind that. Now I have an applicant here, Mr. Isa Charoff, no, or is it Gorman? You got your 5 minutes as soon as you press the red button, okay?
Good evening, Chair and committee members. My name is Truly Groman. I'm from SAM Planning, the agent representing the application. I'm speaking on behalf of the applicant for this proposed garage conversion. This application seeks to convert an underutilized internal garage space into a habitable room to meet the specific needs for this homeowner, which is unfortunately disabled, providing step-free access and more ground floor living space for someone who is having hardship with stairs. I would address some main concerns raised by the objectors, which I've gone through thoroughly. First, one thing is the purpose of the conversion, which is alleged to be because of a further application for HMO. This was already reassured by the officer that this is not the case. I have personally confirmed this with the applicant today again, that there was no further intention of going to HMO, and in fact he reassured that there is a clause on the deed that this must not happen. So he would be in breach if he does that. The second thing would be setting a new precedent of the area. As the officer already mentioned, the very relevant precedent for that was number 85, which was approved on very similar circumstances, and therefore that was thoroughly, I believe, assessed by the planning team and found it to be acceptable. And therefore the one we're talking about would not set any further or any new precedents rather. Number 3, which was also already mentioned regarding the parking impact, the internal parking space is now with the new models of cars, and I would stress on the point of that a disability-enabled car, which requires even more space, would for sure not enter that garage, and one space that's also off-street would be retained, and therefore no further parking stress is anticipated from this proposal. Character and design as well was already mentioned, and it is clear that this is being done. It has a very interesting and nice character, these buildings. They have a different set of stone on the ground floor, bricks on the upper part. Like number 85 has done it beautifully, and they really matched the existing. We have been reassured by the applicant that the same is the intention of this one, and our proposal is actually a replica from that one that was assessed and approved and found to be acceptable. The concerns on antisocial behavior. Now, when we're talking about a single family that is going to, since we've eliminated the doubt of HMO being the case, a single family house is what the whole estate is being used as, and I don't believe there should be any there's actually no evidence that the family taking over this property would result in more antisocial behaviour. There's also another point that was clarified to me today by the applicant, that he's undertook a very lengthy agreement process with the freeholders, the estate management and their legal teams on exactly what he's intending to do, and he has a full written agreement with legal agreement and other stuff that he was happy to share if it's needed, to ensure that the estate management and the freeholders were fully aligned with this approval, with this application, and they were happy for the approval to come through. So to conclude, the officer already outlined the application does comply with the local Hillingdon planning policies and the London plan on a broader level. It respects the character of the area. It addresses a specific need for the homeowner, which is unfortunately disabled, and we find no material planning reasons to refuse this application. I respectfully ask the application to be approved.
Thank you very much. Any questions? No? If you'd like to take your seat, that'd be fantastic. Okay, I'm going to open it straight to the floor. Who's going to... Oh, sorry. Again, I'm forgetting. Yeah. There's a short written submission from Council.
Thank you, Chair. Just a short submission from Councillor Core. She's unfortunately away on a work commitment, so she couldn't attend. Please note, I support the petition and strongly believe that residents' concerns should be heard and taken into account while making the decision. Thank you.
That was short and sweet. It's a pity she's not that quiet in the council chamber, but never mind. Anyway, I'm going to take that away now. Who wants to go first? Councillor David? Councillor David.
Busy one for me tonight, Chairman.
Yeah, really
are we happy that this change is going to fit with the street scene? Because it does open questions. I see in the report there has been one change already. Unfortunately, I can't see it on Street View because it's not available, so I don't get that impression myself. But 1 out of, 200 residents is not really fitting with the street scene, Chairman.
That's a good opinion. I would have a different opinion that these garages are, unless you've got like one of my classic car to get in there, it's fine. But any of the other vehicles, your vehicle or my newer vehicle wouldn't fit in there. And then I don't know whether they're used as garages anyway. But
unfortunately, Chairman, it's not.
And if it's for someone who has a disability and to make their life more comfortable, I don't see.
My concern, Chairman, was not if a car could get into the garage, was whether if it was fitting with the street scene and if officers were happy with that.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, thank you.
That's right.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. I think, the part that the chairman does raise, the point that the chairman does raise is relative, because at the moment what we're looking at is an underutilised garage, which is likely to decay over time because it's underutilised. Now, what you're getting is the insertion of a window, which would have exactly the same pattern of development as the existing property. If we were looking at a completely different material, I would certainly be advocating that we got some design changes, but from the look of the elevations, just because we're replacing the garage door with a window, I wouldn't consider that to be a significant departure in character. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to make comment about that single change on number 83. It's not done beautifully. It's actually poorly designed and looks just awful. This estate was purpose-built, has been designed. So I understand that the residents want to preserve the character and the harmony, especially in the row of terraced homes. I just feel sorry for the applicant that, they bought a dream house and then they discovered that they need extra space and they have to do a conversion. So just to make sure that this won't turn into HMO in the future, because there are a couple already which are not licensed. If we could have a condition, specifically because it's among the terraced houses, which I think we advocated in our local plan.
Also, I've already asked for the officers to put that in, so it's a condition there now, so they won't be able to do that unless it comes back to planning committee. Councillor Cawthorne.
Just quickly on the alleged HMO point, I just want to be clear that this isn't a separate dwelling as part of a bigger dwelling. This is an integral. This is another room, if you like, ground level access. Is that correct?
That's spot on. Okay. Anybody want to propose it? Yeah, Councillor Burrows.
I think we need to go with
About a microphone, please. Sorry.
I propose the officer's recommendation, go with the recommendation, taking into account the protections that can be put on there with the HMO relevance, etc. And it's good to hear that the agent has also said that the applicant is also willing to share further documentation with our planning department if they wish to have it. So I propose.
And we've got the design element in the report to make sure that it's to the standards.
Yeah, so there'll be a standard condition which is applied to ensure that the materials match existing.
Yeah, okay. Seconder, Councillor Davis, second, indicate second. Yep. Okay, so I proposed and seconded. Can I have a show of hands, those in favour of this application? 6 again, 1 abstain? Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, move on to the last. There's a musical, a pit stop going on here quickly. We're going on to the last application. That's been approved, by the way. Thank you very much. Going to the last one. It's been a long night. Thank officers and councillors for their enduring. They must have had caffeine before they came out tonight. But we're on the last one, so whenever you're right, Michael.
Sorry, mate. Yeah.
Although I was going to call you Mike Kemp, but I'll let you on.
Thank you, Chair. Please be advised that there is an addendum for this item. This clarifies the type of hedging planting proposed and confirms that it will be a pollution-absorbing type of planting. So item 12 relates to the Minette School, which is a nursery, infant and junior school located on the north side of Avondale Drive in Hayes. The site measures 3.5 hectares in area and has recently been redeveloped as part of a DFE-led project. That's another location plan there. So the school is surrounded by residential properties to the north, east, south and west. The south forms part of the declared, the site forms part of the declared Hillingdon Air Quality Management Area, and there is a nature conservation area designated to the north but outside of the site. That's in a bird's eye view of the site as dated 2019 prior to development. I'm going to take you through some pictures quickly. This starting with the new bin store area shown there. New access gates which provides access from Avondale Drive. The pedestrian pathway to the side of that vehicular access, the newly surfaced school car park shown there. This is where a pond feature has been removed from the site. This is the previous location for the bin store. Again, more gates with a bit of, you can see in the background, a bit of planting there. And this is a view of the western playing fields. So quickly, planning permission has been granted in September 2021 for extensions, remodelling and refurbishment of the existing nursery, infant and junior schools. The proposal was supported by the council and forms the basis of the current application. The current application seeks permission to make amendments to the previous approval, including changes to the hard and soft landscaping, bin storage and cycle storage. Some works have been carried out and some works are still to be carried out, meaning the application is part retrospective and part proposed. This is the previously considered site plan, and including extensions to the infant and junior school buildings, hard and soft landscaping, some resurfacing, relocation of school functions, as well as tree removal and replacement tree planting. This shows the amended proposed site plan. The changes include the relocation of the bin store and cycle store, provision of new fencing and gates, replacement of hard standing with permeable asphalt, installation of bollards, relocation of a polytunnel, removal of a pond feature, and proposal of new planting beds and hedgerow planting. This is a plan of that bin store that you saw earlier. It comprises a 1.8 metre high closed board timber enclosure. This details the use of trough planters to soften some of the fencing proposed. This is the proposed planting plan for the front of the site. It includes the new air pollution absorbing hedgerow to soften the fencing proposals on the right hand side there. And this is the proposed planting plan to the rear of the site, and shows some more additional planting beds proposed. To summarise, the principle of the overall development has been established by the previous approval on this site. No objections have been received from residents, internal consultees or Sport England on the proposed amendments. Taking all matters into consideration, the changes are considered to be minor material amendments, and the application is recommended for approval subject to conditions. I pass back to you, Chair.
Thank you. You've had to wait a long time for that, haven't you? Right, straight to the floor. Councillor Davies is indicating.
Chairman, I don't think this needs much discussion, other than it was my primary school and it's nice to see some updated pictures. I'd be happy to move officers' recommendations.
Right.
Don't think we need any further discussion.
I would propose another seconder. Councillor Singh.
I'm second, Chair.
Thank you very much. Can I show of hands all in favour of this application? Thank you very much. I'd like to say thank you all for this evening, and we've managed to get it not too late, so which is really good. Anyway, good night. Safe drive home.